I think
Yeah.
when we stuffed in the chair, they had more than.
Okay,
somebody just
Derek,
go there.
thank you for waiting.
Thank you, Mike.
For us.
No problem.
I'll call the meeting to order at 6:03. I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Minutes, November 18th and December 9th. Does anyone have any questions? Am I at the wrong one? Wait a minute.
Dated the 17th.
See, uh-oh.
Check the packet, because I actually posted a corrected agenda on Tuesday, because there was a typo. So it should say December.
Oh, okay. But everything else is the same?
Yeah, it's.
Because I don't have the paper packet. I'm looking at your email.
Okay,
I mean, I'm looking at the
packet had
website.
correct minutes, it's just that the
Okay.
agenda had the original.
So it's December what?
December 5th.
December 5th. Okay. Sorry.
Move
So,
approval.
yep, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Judith.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, unanimous, Eleanor.
Both minutes?
Yes,
Okay,
yep, with the corrected date, sorry about that.
that was my fault.
So, public comment, we have Mr. Cassidy here, and, might have a couple of things to tell us.
Hi. Excuse me.
Thanks for being here.
Judith,
Joey.
you're part of the reason that I'm here tonight. Back in, I think, early November, I think everybody here is aware of the recent land bank Larrabee transaction. The culmination of that, and or as a result of that, there were a bunch of things going on. And one of the things the Larrabees are going to be doing is taking down Tom Sr.'s old house and in the next couple of years building a farm stand in that area right there, that, property that's owned by the land bank and so on and so forth. And I went in to talk to Andrew about bike paths and the bike path situation as it exists along from Hummock Pond Road to Somerset Road itself. In other words, all of Somerset Lane. And asked if there were any way that we could expedite things and, perhaps give it a little push. He suggested that I pay for the construction of the new bike path and everything would probably be good.
Probably speed things
Yeah,
up.
it would speed things up quite a bit.
All in favor, say
And
aye.
I thanked him for squandering our meager resources. However, went home and talked to Katie about it, and we hope that the board will accept as a gift the design phase of that section of bike path. In other words, from Somerset Road to Hummock Pond Road. Art Gasparo has been instructed to go ahead and do the plan. And I say that Judith brought me here because early on in this discussion, I saw Judith speaking to Fritz, and I did a little drive-by shooting and said, gave her a heads up on what was coming. In any event, due to, we had hoped to have this to you by the end of December. And there was a particular warrant article that caused a lot of people concern, and Art called and asked for relief from us with the December deadline because some people have been put in a difficult position. In any event, that article has been withdrawn. He is back on it, but he's busy with a couple of other things. We will have that, a working plan to you by no later than your March meeting, hopefully in February, but to manage expectations, I'll say March. And what will be done at that point is a schematic plan to lay before you and invite comment or what have you. What Katie will guarantee is, right up until the build phase, until that project is ready to be bid upon. The legal work that will necessarily be done on that side of the road. Jesse Brescher and John Brescher have volunteered their services to do, or to help with any easements or what have you that are necessary. We have a lot of relationships along the road, and I really don't anticipate much pushback, if any pushback. there have been several people that have stepped forward already to ask if they can help and they can participate. As part of this, I also intend to instruct Arthur's office to set up a 501c3 that neighbors, to the extent that they could, maybe can contribute $100 or $1,000 or something, just to more to show a desire, really, rather than to subsidize the the entire project. And I myself will do a little bit of missionary work and try and pull an Andrew on maybe Phil Bartlett and some others out in the area where it could really benefit. And again, to manage expectations, it is not my opinion that this would ever rise to the level of the complete cost of construction, but more we're all in this together and we want to participate and so on and so forth. But to kickstart that, we will pay for the design phase and get that all going. If I think you guys have to accept that. Is that
link,
so?
Right? We're talking about from Bartlett Farm Road.
Bartlett.
We're talking from
Bartlett Road.
no,
to-
we're talking.
But I'm saying
Oh,
that's
oh,
that
I'm
missing
sorry.
link
The
over to
link,
there.
he means, yeah.
Yeah. From
Yes.
This would be from the
Correct.
intersection of
Amazing.
Somerset and Somerset to Hummock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're already doing
Yep,
you're already doing that raceway portion. I
Raceway
believe,
thing is
right?
getting improved.
Yeah.
It's already there, but it's like a sidewalk.
It is.
That's
And it's
getting
bumpy.
kind of, I think that's on something that's being done by the town, DPW, widening a little bit. But this piece is
It's the missing link.
never been
It's
done, and
amazing.
all the houses are set way back. There isn't anything close to the road on
the-
that side.
Right-hand side
So-
going towards the golf course.
And
It is?
Jack is right. I think it's narrower than a normal layout.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And it gets narrower
then
towards
that's where the
Hummock Pond
easements come
Road. Art, in fact, he has, I think, the majority of the field work done, but he still has to locate Phil's fences and so on and so forth down on that end. But we think that there is a way to get a 10-foot wide paved surface down there along with the extra whatever is necessary for buffer. And that's it. We see this as, rather than a dollar figure, Katie grabbed a check on our way out of the house. I said, wait a minute. This is going to be more of a living donation until we're done. And we don't want to operate in a vacuum and just hand you a completed plan. I think it's important that Mike Burns is involved with this, and you get a working document by March or when have you, and we comment on it and then we put it together.
Yeah, I mean, is anyone, Mike, do we have any plans from an old, like, I remember this coming up before over there, but it's like sort of as a link during the whole Hummock Pond bike path discussion when went to town meeting and we said all in favor say aye, but it didn't happen right away because we had to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then somebody came along and paid for it. But wasn't there something on Somerset Road that was done in an old plan, or there never has been?
We have
Because that's good. If it hasn't been, this is good because it's not like duplicating the efforts,
Yeah, no, it's great. The partial survey at the intersection of Hummock Pond Road and Somerset is done. On the other end, DPW, Water and Sewer are progressing a project that includes a path and a bus stop for raceway between
Yep.
Somerset
And-
Road and Bartlett Road. So that's a separate raceway project, but it's essentially the same corridor.
We'll be we're planning on tying in right to that. And,
Exactly.
even if there is something, Art is a pretty particular guy and he's going to want to do it, and put his stamp on it. So,
Yeah. So
there's plenty
some
of-
work at either end, but obviously there's significant work still to be done.
Well, the legal works with easements. Now that I didn't know it was a 30-foot. I thought Bartlett Farm was the only 30-footer over there. Because I know that is. We all know that is. But okay, well that's the hard part.
I think it's variable.
Getting that done. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Judith.
Thank you so much. That's a great idea. I also think your idea about having the 501c3 is really smart because there's so many people that bike up that way in the summer. They might well contribute or something like that. If Bartlett Farm got behind it or whatever, I think it is kind of a community spirit raising operation too, among other things, so good
We
job.
need to also, I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't
No,
mean to
that's all.
interrupt you. I'm on capital
Yeah.
thinking. This funding, Andrew, the remaining funding for the construction, hopefully we could get that in August for next year, right? Wouldn't that be the thought? This isn't gonna be that expensive to do this. I don't think. Because it's straight shot, there's no like trees, and it's more of, well, there's trees, but you
It
know
is,
what I
it
mean.
is, it is
It's not
going to be
structures and things to move. The poles on that side?
on the south side. It's over on Dickie's side, and it runs right, it runs over from Dick Liddon's on the corner, actually
Yeah.
Craig Hunter's on the corner,
Yep.
to, there's a couple that is building a house right on the, where Phil's property comes back around the corner there that I don't know. The next one in is Cindy or Danny Bartlett, and then so on and so forth. But again, two people, there's a family down on the Somerset Lane end of things who come over and their children ride with Katie in some afternoons. As soon as she heard about it, she quickly volunteered and wanted to know how to participate. And as soon as Jesse and John heard about this, they jumped right on board and wanted to participate. And I think it'll be a pretty straightforward thing to do, and it's a good little kickstart. And I saw that there is some type of review going on tonight. If it wasn't for him, this wouldn't have happened. So I'd like to make note of that.
Well, thanks, Bill, very, very much. So,
Thank you.
It's awesome.
So
Do we need a motion or something?
It's just information, wasn't it?
It should be on a future
agenda. Let's have it as an agenda item but when you're ready with Art, we can put it on the agenda with a few days' notice before it's posted.
I'll
makes
have
sense.
him
Me and Mike.
Yeah.
Well, he'll correspond directly with you guys, but you're going to, if we can negate as much of that as possible by getting it to you as quickly as possible, I think that's better, and the board can certainly weigh in or what have you. But I would just as soon put this in the rear view as quickly as possible.
Well, we can,
Right.
so the next meeting, we're having a meeting in February, right?
We are.
Yeah, so that's right around the corner.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to push you. I'm
No.
talking about on our end. I'm going
Yeah.
to keep the
Keep-
steam
no,
on
no,
our.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No one's gonna say no, I can tell you that. So, that's fine. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So Mike, you want to start with the Milestone Rotary contract?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, there's a warrant article to authorize the acquisition of property next to the Milestone Rotary, which has recently been acquired by the Land Bank. That requires an Article 97 process. We need to quantify or get a plan developed showing the right-of-way impacts of the conceptual Milestone Rotary reconstruction project and the impacts of that property, so that it's a good visual aid for that process. That work includes verifying the work that was done in 2006 by Howerston Engineering. That you might recall that whole process. That design needs to be peer reviewed and to ensure that it's still something we want to use going forward and make adjustments as necessary. And we also need to do supplemental surveying and actually develop the plan, and GPI is going to be doing that. GPI, you might know, does a lot of work on islands, and we're comfortable with their work. The cost of their services is about $11,000. We do have funding in the Unified Planning Work Program, which is our regional transportation planning funding source. So we could use professional services money from that program to fund this work. Derek can elaborate on the status of that, but I'm told that we have a soft yes on that approval, and that we'll get final documentation on that soon. So what staff would recommend is that the NPDC authorize the Director of Planning to sign the agreement once the funding request is approved by the Mass DOT.
Okay.
I have nothing to add. That was our summary as well.
Okay. So does anyone have any questions about this? I mean, this is we all know what this is. This is to get the little bit of land, the articles on for this year. And then this is just who we're gonna hire to
How much
sort of
land is
rework.
it? Andrew,
Andrew, do you know how much that is there?
is it even an acre that we're trying to get?
Well, you can see, I mean, it's,
No.
I mean, part of this.
It's like a radius.
Determine exactly what that is, but we do have other land to exchange with the land bank, so to mitigate for this loss. But I don't think it's, I don't wanna say, because I'm not sure.
It was just curiosity.
It's not extensive.
Okay. So
Need a motion?
I guess we do, yeah.
I make a motion to authorize Andrew to sign the agreement for funding, is that what we're doing?
I think so, yes. Yes, it is.
Okay. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Chairman, just as an ancillary note on that, the staff has submitted a project initiation proposal to the DOT for the reconstruction of the Milestone Rotary per the 2019 town meeting vote. And that project initiation for widening a Milestone Road to add the shoulders is still being developed. It's a lot of paperwork and things to get finalized, but it needs to be prioritized. Once MassDOT reviews that project information, staff and the town will be notified about the next steps by DOT so that we can continue to advance this project.
Okay. You all good, Derek?
Yeah.
With this, you know what's going on here. Were you around in '06 when this was
Here's in New Hampshire.
kind of like
No, I
too
wasn't.
good to be true? No one was ready yet. So,
Right.
okay. Next item, Mike.
This is more informational, if nothing else, and maybe it's something that we can continue on a future agenda. I thought it was good to track the status of the recently approved long-range transportation plan, just to so you're familiar with how we're progressing the vision, goals, and objectives of that plan and where they stand. There's a chart that starts on page 33, but there's also a narrative in the report. With respect to the, these are broken down into the different vision elements regarding vehicle restrictions, town and country, patterns of development, multimodal, parking management, wayfinding, and the rest of it. I think the point of adding it to this agenda is that there's been a recent interest in the vehicle restriction vision here, and that is, you can look at what the goal is, and that's to reduce the number of motor vehicles on islands, and then there's different objectives about establishing a number and then working with developing a policy and the rest of it. I believe, and Andrew can elaborate on this better than I can, there was a request for legal review of this idea to look at the legal opinion on the ability to do this restriction. Based on some opinions that were back in 1998, I think. And I think that's ongoing, but nothing's been finalized yet, so we don't really have the legal opinion of town council on this. But with respect to the study efforts that are part of this vision, I've had discussions with Julia Lidner and Grant Sanders representing Act Now. There's some interest on participating in this effort. I'm not sure 100% if they're willing to finance the studying of this, but it is something that they find interesting and something that maybe there is potential there. But there is a need to, obviously, if you're going to implement this plan, there are certain things you need to understand, which, and number one is the number of vehicles that are on island and what restriction level you want to set, if you're going to set a restriction. So that all needs to be figured out, and we have old historic documents that we're using right now for guidance, and that all needs to be updated. There's some material that's attached to this item that you can review on what vehicle population is, what's the numbers been communicated recently, how there's discrepancy in those sources, and what different figures are going around. That's all being refined and adjusted, but I think it demonstrates the need to put a little bit more effort into this understanding and to update the study efforts. And just to let you know that that Act Now has expressed interest on this. Julie's not here at this meeting to elaborate on that, so I'll just leave it right there. And then maybe perhaps at a future meeting, they can attend the meeting and let you know specifically how they are interested and how they want to participate. That said, the balance of this material is just to let you know the status of each one of these as far as the daily workflow and other moving parts on and actually implementing this plan, specifically the visions and the goals of the plan. So if you have a chance to look at this, I'm happy to answer any questions. But again, I think this is something to just continue on as we go along to use this as a way to track progress. And it's definitely helpful for me to understand where we are in reality. And I'm sure it's very helpful for you to understand where we are in the plan's development because and not too long into the future, we're going to update it once again. So that's this is all part of the effort to track what you're approving and how you're asking staff to devote time and resources.
Okay, anyone have any questions?
Was there originally a legal opinion when it first came up about restricting the subdivision? No, we never got that far.
I know we made the Dallas papers. I don't remember
There was
that
a
part.
legal opinion by, and I can't even remember his name now. He's, no, it was he was on the, anyway, I think I have a file that I have to try to dig out, or I may give it to Rick Atherton or somebody. But there was a legal opinion, not from the town, from outside of the town, showing how it was legal. You had to have a vote of the legislature. We went up to the legislature and got through a couple different committees a couple times, and it came back and didn't really. The board shifted. The board shifted, and the appetite. It's a difficult thing to figure out how to do fairly. Was the difficulty of it, but I think there's anyway. It's not something that we should completely give up at some point. At the rate we're going. I did because I read the packet and I saw the sort of the discrepancy. So I went to Alan Ward and said, "Hey, how did you?" Because I know you guys have been going back and forth trying to see how they got their numbers. And I just received an email back. Basically, what they use is the RMV numbers and the assessor numbers. They use the middle of the winter as their anchor. So they take the middle of the winter and they add those numbers and they check them. So they counting all vehicles. It does total over 32,000 the way they count it. They use trip level ferry data. So every boat, they're plussing and minusing every single boat. They're not just taking one picture at the beginning or the end of the month. They're taking a picture on every single boat to know. And they do include trucks. They don't, some of these studies haven't included trucks. They're including trucks as a vehicle when it comes off the boat and goes back on the boat. So if so that's sort of, so where the discrepancies might, or not might come, where the discrepancies do come is if another method uses a different way of counting, it'll come out with a slightly different number. So,
Yeah, the way the steamship counts, and I'm glad he kind of thought, made me think of that. Each trip by a car is considered, one direction is one. It's not like a round trip is one. So I don't even know if there's a way. They don't send the information out of each direction.
Yeah, they do.
Do they?
I do.
I should know that.
I have about 20 years of
Do they?
to and from flows
Okay,
of
see
everything.
that? It doesn't come out
attention
on
to
the
those
on the
meetings.
monthly report. It's not there. They have some other data that shows that.
It's there's a business summary that you get for your
Yeah,
meetings
that's the one
with
I'm
the steamship,
thinking
and
of.
then there's a separate traffic report
All right, see,
that's issued out that's
okay.
very specific.
Mike's kind of tuned into this stuff now. All right, so they do tell you, like a dead-headed boat, it's got 3 cars on it, and then the other one had 50.
For the end of the
All right,
month, so it's a
good.
monthly total. I think what Matt's point is that if there's a particular hour on a particular day in the middle of a month in August, like you tell me when the busy boat is, the 10 o'clock boat on the day before the pops, everything gets off, and that split second before you board the boat, right? There's so many cars that are on the island before those 50 cars can get onto the
Yeah.
boat, and that's where they capture. That's where they get that number. Mine is the end of the month, and quite honestly, my July number is much bigger than the August number, even though they'll tell you that it's busier in August because I look at the end of the month, not some
Yeah.
time by the hour that they do. They also use assessor information, which is a little bit different than the registry of motor vehicle information. So those are the two things that allow their number to be a little higher than the number that I would give you. Because you're using a different source for the registry, there may not actually be a vehicle registered and the mailing information that the assessor has. The registry, I would say that that's a definitive clearinghouse for that kind of information. And the data platform does agree, and they're trying to refine that. It's just not being shared right now, which is the frustration. But I think that's the effort into the future is to have clarity and transparency.
I think according to this, it was not an unwillingness to share. It was, we've been trying to get this together and get back to you.
Yeah.
It sounds like, so
But it is public. It's public. It is out in the public and being used by other sources as the number. And that's why we had to get ahead of this and question it, quite frankly.
Well, I agree, but you should understand it, but I also think it's, anyway. I think that they're not trying to hide it. They'll share their, basically, if you read some of this in here, it might sound like they're not willing to do that. They are willing to do that.
Okay.
They've done it, and will be in touch or you should be in touch with them, which they say you have been. So
Yeah.
they're really refining it as well.
Could I ask a question, one to you, Matt, and then to Mike also? To you, Matt, I wonder if you know whether they disaggregate the data so you can see things like trucks over a certain size or oversized
They
like
have that.
work vehicles or
Yep.
because I think as we try to figure out the answers here, we really it would be helpful to see not only raw number total, but something about the typology of what it is.
That they do have. I
So-
didn't realize I had the.
But I think
That-
that would be
yeah.
useful for us to know. And then the
Yeah.
other thing I wondered, Mike, is I wasn't here back when you were using your system from 99 to 2001. So I wondered whether you could explain that methodology or if there's some kind of paper material you could share with that, because I'd like to understand it fully. And also whether that's 20 years gone now, so wondering whether common practice has shifted at all. I mean, are those kinds of things with different technology, with
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of the data scientists know a lot of magic.
like that. I'm just curious
Yeah.
if there are. It's just like hearing about their model. It would be interesting to know. You're using this because you've used it historically and you're making comparisons, right?
I'm borrowing a technique that was used and accepted here locally when I came aboard, and that was developed by Howard Stein Hudson and RKG on defining that. And they admitted at the time that it is the best thing that they had available to them on calculating this. So you can see that and realize that there are errors and some
so-
precision to that.
I'm just wondering if through your listservs or whatever, it would be interesting to know if the world on the mainland still does it the way we're doing it, whether there's alternative ways, because when I think of traffic counts, I think of often the
Wire.
lines on the road and then getting clicked when people pass over, but I know that there's now like Waze data or different kinds of things like that,
Yeah.
for all I know, there could be 14 different ways that are emerging that I don't know whether we could afford them or if they'd be any better.
Aren't we
but
putting
it's
in
just
those,
Yeah,
worth-
let me just
he's
answer
got
that and just
something
say
on
like
that.
I think you're actually making the exact point of the transparency. They may have all kinds of magic tricks, the data scientists, on calculating this. I mean, just share it, because right now they're not providing very much detail other than it's registry information and it's net vehicle boat. Honestly, I don't think that the data platform is using anything more complicated than what I'm using. They have definitely a lot more precision because they have daily and hourly net flows, and I just have month.
Well, but my question though to you is, among your peers that are transportation planners, I read planning literature, I don't know the transportation sources to see if.
We know exactly how many registered vehicles there are in the United States. Whether they're on this island at that particular time, that's why we use the steamship numbers the way we do, and we just make the assumption that there may be some kind of ping that goes out, some Bluetooth device. I'm measuring that. Quite frankly, that I thought that's what they were doing, and could provide detail on that. I don't have those resources, and there's not a technique it's not a magic way of doing that calculation.
That's all I'm asking
Yeah.
is you do like future scanning, what are people doing? How are they doing it on the vineyard? How are other people doing it now? It seems to me it may be the truth and the only way to do it from 20 years ago, but I'm just asking, they may have their system, but what I wondered is among your peer transportation experts, might there be new ways to think about how to do counts? And I think I'm understanding you saying there's only so many sources of data. There's registration data, and there's like be out there and count the noses of each car as they go by probably, and all. But I'm wondering about things like artificial intelligence, like seeing ways and some of the other kinds of algorithms that are developed because computers have changed quite a lot what their capacity is in this period of time. So that may be a Derek question. I don't know if they have ways of doing this otherwise, but I just
You have to, I understand what you're trying to say, and there's two kinds of counts you do. Cars that are physically on the island at one given time, and then there's the use of that vehicle, which is what you're talking about, putting the tubes out in the road and how many people are driving down Milestone Road or any other road. That's definitely a way to calculate things. It goes, there's an array of technology from rubber tubes that I tape down to cameras that are highly intelligent, can do that. None of those technologies tell you how many vehicles are specifically on the island at any given time, which is why we resort to the steamship information and the registered vehicle numbers. Now, there's other ways to do this, and I'm learning that not every car in other states needs to be inspected, which actually requires you to go to that inspection station, and they know that. Connecticut doesn't require this, Maine doesn't require this, but the registration of a vehicle, you can do that by mail. So there very well may be cars from Maine or Connecticut that are on islands that we don't necessarily know, but that's why we do the net thing with the Steamship Authority, that exercise. Again, it's not perfect, but that's the best thing that, again, I'll go back to the argument 20 years ago, that's the best thing that we have, only because so many other states don't require the more precise inspections that would allow us to capture that. If there was, and it was uniform throughout the country, you had to have an inspection sticker and you had to go to your state to do that, that would start to show up. And
It's surprising that it isn't everywhere, but
I'm shocked when I learned that.
I gave my students a problem about self-driving vehicles and thinking especially there, you want updates of software and things like that, but you find out there's only like 20 states that require it, or maybe it's 30, but it's somewhere in there, so Matt was gonna say something.
Just my simple analysis, going back to Matt and me, 1998 stuff. The vehicles, more cars are registered here that are in garages than there, way more than there was back in the day. So I think the registered vehicle number is more accurate each passing year, especially with the new Nantucket license plate that all the summer residents are competing to have with their neighbors. I got one, I'm gonna have two. So they all are doing this, and it's just true. I mean, I see them in these people's houses. So whatever that number, we had 16,000, I think, was in 98, 99, wasn't it?
Something like this,
I think
yeah.
it was like 16.
Yeah.
I'll bet you there was 20 then, but they were they were New York, they were New Jersey, they were something, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But now, there isn't too many cars in a garage that don't have a Massachusetts license plate, that are sitting there for 9 months. So
Just
that's all I'm saying.
one other illustration of why I was asking what I was asking is Lyft and Uber, people coming from off island, they may
Oh,
get
they're
counted
not.
once by the steamship if they're coming, but then they're on the road all the time. So whatever the assumptions of a car making 4 trips or whatever the baseline is, my impression or my question, it's kind of a research question, is are we counting the impact of that kind of lumpiness in the use? That's the same reason for asking about like the scale of vehicles, because with more, you said this, Nat, like people with their pretty heavy duty truck that has like their workshop in their back
you mean
and that kind of
the
thing
trailers.
too. Well, I see trailers that are across the center line quite often that are landscaped, so I
That's
think
the way they make the axles on those things to
but-
carry. I know
but
it is an anomaly.
the impact
Yeah.
that we're feeling, it's not just raw numbers, it's some of these other kinds of things. Lyft and Uber drivers who aren't from the island and who don't know their way around, they probably get lost more, so there's even more of that. I don't know, but to solve the dilemma, insofar as there is a dilemma, it just seems to me we need to see the picture in more richness than just by looking at numbers, and I don't know if anybody has the capacity to do that, but it just seemed to me we may have to work on pieces of that at a time. Like some places, I think, charge Lyft and Uber some amount of fees. I don't know if Lyft and Uber drivers get to come here or if they have to log in with Uber, Lyft
Their
Central
own
or.
car.
I don't think they do.
Yeah, we get about $30,000 from transportation network companies. We are one of the highest rates of rideshare in the entire Commonwealth, and by law we get 10 cents of that. And we got about $30,000 this past year, which again we have a lot of ideas of how to use that money, but it's a very popular activity here.
If there is a congestion problem, and a lot of people think there is, the only way to fix it is, you can't have one, there's not one fix for the whole thing, to my mind, because it may be there's something about where the ferry parking and drop-offs are. It may be something about how we manage Lyft and Uber. It may be something about construction vehicles. It may be something about routing. I mean, I don't know, but until we get a richer picture of that, and I don't think that the data platform necessarily has that data because they're not transportation experts like you are. It just seems to me that for places that are considering things like New York City with congestion pricing and various other more radical solutions, somebody out there probably has a method to figure that out, and that's all I was after.
Yeah, I think one of the questions was, has it improved in 20 years? And I would say yes, it's improved. Data Project platform is looking at comparing RMV versus assessor, so they're looking at that, and we'll know kind of the difference on that. They were using streetlight data, which was getting not your name, but getting pings from people's phones. So depending how fast your phone moves, they can tell if you're in a car or not. They can tell if there's 3 or 4 people in a car, and it's all, there's no names attached to it. They've moved to a different company. I'm not sure. I can't remember the name of the company. That's even more, more precise, a little more ahead of the game than that. And that's how, if you go on their website, there's some really interesting sort of videos that you can watch that show like how the year goes and the populations and when they come and go. It'd be great to put on here if people haven't seen it. When people come and go from the island, and it shows the peaks on the weekends, and it shows the explosion around the pops, and then they go away and they come back again. They also show, they have one that shows Nantucket's favorite beaches. So it shows the beginning of the morning and there's nobody at the beach, and then everybody wakes up and they all head out in their bikes and cars and stuff out to the beach, and you have all, it shows all the little dots on the beaches, and then they all come back into town again at night. So they've got sort of, it's unbelievable what can happen. So there is, that's the point of, there's a huge shift in, sort of big data, how you collect it, how you can use it. And that would answer some of your questions about usage. If an Uber guy comes and's over here, that car will be used at a lot bigger rate. Part of the other reasons it happens is a lot of the visitors use their cars at a higher rate than they would at home. At home, they get up in the morning and they go to work and they park it for 8 hours and they get up at, and go home. Here, when everyone's on vacation and 2/3, 3/4 of the island is on vacation, they're going from thing to thing to thing throughout the day. They might spend a few hours at the beach, but then they're paying, going golfing or playing tennis or going to dinner. So there's a high rate of usage, which is part of what we're dealing with as well. So, and the more we can understand that, the better, but.
So, thanks, Matt. I'm sorry for, just this whole conversation. I just don't want anyone not to be able to say whatever they want to say about it. So, if not, we don't need, that was informational.
Correct.
As far as that, I mean.
Frankly, I thought Julie would be here to see how they would want to participate going forward. And I think they do the roundtable events and stuff that they try to get participation on. I think she was going to say something about that, but I don't know. Maybe she'll be here next month to articulate, but that's why it was on the agenda.
Yep. Okay. So we'll move on to Tom Evers' feasibility study. Seems like we've been doing for longer than talking about limiting cars. So what are we doing? What are we doing now on this project or potential project?
No, we had the draft feasibility study, or permitting feasibility
Oops.
study.
Oh, I saw him go out for a second. Hold on one second. Derek, are you okay? The pizza guy
Yeah.
show up? Okay.
Right, I got disconnected, sorry.
No, I saw the light go out, but I wasn't sure if that was okay or not. Okay, thanks.
Whether Nat did it himself.
Think of the draft permitting feasibility is in your packet, based on a review by Weston and Sampson.
I was reading that.
And there's, just so you know, that there is a project map that's provided in the packet. Essentially the corridor from Milestone Road all the way down to Tom Nevers to the fields specifically is being recommended to be advanced. These ancillary spurs that come off of it through Conservation Foundation property and down the private section of Old Tom Nevers Road. Not only is that a property acquisition issue, there are environmental trips that trips a lot of like MIPA processes and things like this, and they're endangered species that just don't exist. After this review found that they just don't exist. So we're going to recommend go ahead and just cutting off evaluation of any of these other spur alignments and just keep the existing alignment for along Tom Nevers Road and pursue that. With that, staff is going to recommend that the select board, once we get the proposal from Weston Sampson, to modify their agreement, and that they go ahead and include ground survey, and so that we can go do a little bit more detailed evaluation of the corridor, like electric poles and property lines, and get very specific about what the alignment on Tom Nevers Road would look like, and so we can cost the project appropriately and wrap up that agreement. So that amendment to the contract, I would think that the board would get that, I would assume, in the next month or so, and staff would recommend that the select board approve that so we can move on to a more detailed evaluation.
You don't need any action tonight.
This is, unless there's issues, you just really wanted to go down Old Tom Nevers Road.
No, that road's only, the people would blow up. It's not even worth it. They would go haywire. The road's too narrow.
Bert may have an opinion on this too, so.
I got a question, Mike. The green spur that goes across the conservation, you're suggesting that be eliminated now?
Because it's going to trip a MIPA process, and that is an area that's flagged for endangered species. So that you would have to go out and survey the endangered species, come up with a mitigation strategy for impacting them. And
That area where it connects into Tom Nevers Field?
Yeah.
That's Housing Authority land there, and that's the problem we had, the white moth or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that we
Okay.
couldn't do anything there. We couldn't use it for housing, so.
Okay.
And Andrew, this is on the east side, right?
Yeah, we're recommending the east side, there's fewer.
Don't you have-
Crossings, there's.
You have
the
some
planning board over the years has,
secured land.
secured various easements
Yep.
and no impact, along there. So that's the side that makes the most sense, of course, that's also the side with all the.
Yeah, but you told me, you already gave me the shakedown of this 2 years ago, and I completely changed my mind after you explained all this. It makes sense. It doesn't look like it makes sense, but it does. It's one of those kind of things. The other side, it's got all the roads, it's got all the mailboxes, well, whatever.
It's got houses close.
It's got houses close to the road. That side, even though it's higher, it's the right thing to do.
I thought it was because we want the chance to tell N-Grid to bury their poles.
Well, in the original developer's sales brochure for Tom Nevers East, Nantucket Beach property, you might be able to get some of that material from Richard Glidden, because he represented Nantucket Beach property.
We're going back
They
to the
showed on their sales literature, they were supposed to give the town a bicycle path down the east side of Tom Nevers Road. It was in their sales brochure, but the planning
year was
board
that?
back in those days didn't follow up on it and let them start releasing lots, but never followed through to get the easement.
Is there statute limitations?
What year was that? It's had to be in the 60s.
Well, I think 16.
Was it Jimmy Glidden? Had to be.
No, Richard worked on it too.
Yeah.
I was on the board when I was a board. I was on the planning board in '68.
That's when that was when that whole big lot issue was going on out there.
There are easements, there's no disturb easements on many of those properties along there.
But what I've tried to do is when anyone would come to us as our board of the Property Owners Association, like someone was gonna put a tent, that one tennis court that's out there. He was gonna butt it up close to the road, and I went to him and said, listen, there's a future bike path coming down there. You want it going through your tennis court? And I don't think so. So hold your tennis court back away from that road with the anticipation of a bike path coming along there. So we've done that with 2 or 3 of those properties that are on that side to keep them away from the road.
I wonder if that's in any of the old legal records. Anybody with property there, do you think anybody's researched that easement?
Well, that's why I suggested that maybe Richard Glidden might
Would
have
know,
something in
yeah.
his file. But I remember they had a trifold color brochure that you opened up, and it showed a bicycle path on the east side of Tom Nevers Road.
We do know the property's all land court, and there are easements in place. That's again, goes into our thinking about why it was on that side.
I think also, if I may, Mr. Chair, on the opposite side, there are some parcels of land that are, I think, 100 by 100 that are owned by the Commonwealth, and I think they're drainage parcels. So I think it would be difficult to get easements through there.
So, okay, so what do you need from us right now on this, Mike? You need a
We just
vote,
wanted to let you know that
where
this
you
is
are now.
advancing,
Yeah, this is good.
And if anybody, now is the time to speak up if you have any issues with the.
No, I think it makes no sense to go to Winoma. I mean, that's absurd. I mean, you can drive your bike out there anyway. You know, we have way more priorities than that. I know that there's gonna be more activity going on out at the end with whatever we're gonna end up doing out there. So it makes a lot of sense to get, this is going all the way out to Navy base, right?
To the playing fields, yeah.
And it's gonna stay on the same side of the road all the way, or is it, that would be the right thing?
That's the idea,
okay.
but again, that's part of the effort of going through this alternatives analysis and doing field survey to see if, for whatever reason, you may need to cross over after Tom Nevers Road, old Tom Nevers Road, but maybe there's a high likelihood that you can just stay on the existing.
Dangerous, need to stay on one side, people.
Yeah, and all the houses down after the curve
All
are way
closer to
back
the
toward
road.
the ocean side.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, that's the right thing, Mike.
Yeah.
You know, if anything. I was just thinking of the separated path all the way, Andrew, in your eyes?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, so the south side, it would transition, so it's on the east side coming in, and then it transitions to the south side.
Oh,
So if you look, you see how the road bends around?
At the curve, it would still stay on the east
it's
side.
still gonna stay.
It's still east, but it gradually, so there is no
But-
road crossing. If we-
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think we should have that, but, okay, I got it. Okay. Okay, well, this is great. We appreciate it, Mike, all these different things. Would this be tip, or would this be private and public, maybe?
Right
I'm
now,
just dreaming.
right now it would be a
local.
locally funded project.
Would it be?
It's in the CIP
Yeah.
for an out year. So
Okay.
it would go to town meeting and we'd see votes. I'm sure there could be something like a Billy Cassidy effort or the Friends of the Hummock Pond Road Bike Path. Maybe the Friends of the Tom Nevers Road Bike Path could get formed and Bert could help champion that. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
Just
I've got a,
Just a fun question. I'm just curious about the old railroad, because at some point, do we have, I'm sure we have maps and things where that railroad was. And I think this is the best location for a bike path, but I'm just curious, speed tracking, whatever. If there was once a railroad going through there, wouldn't there have been historical easements going through there? And everything from the moths to the plants and things like that, there was already a train going through there. So if you make the train tracks into a bike path,
but I think where that was, it went over the.
that goes down, that's out at the end, Monoma area.
It's important to remember too, the train left in 1980.
well, maybe the growth has gone over.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a house now where it used to be.
No, Lee, I
And there are.
suggest you contact Alan and Lee on that. They have that stuff totally dialed in.
I do believe the right-of-way committee has a project to try to reopen that for hiking.
Yeah. With a
When we have considered bike paths in the past, there has been that concern about, emergency vehicles and putting it out in completely, unaccessible areas.
Right.
But I do know that the right-of-way committee does have, a plan, a vision to, mark the route of the railroad. And I think they're gonna implement that, so. That is through, the majority of that is through Conservation Foundation land there.
Yeah. Talk to Alan.
Down the railroad
Telling you.
in Surfside, but it was too far off the road.
Yep.
That's why we-
Yeah, that's way inside the road. Yeah,
And that land was given to the land bank.
yeah, from Jensen.
Jensen, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So, again, Mike, thank you for your efforts here and jumping around to all these different, I guess I would say, out year projects that have been there for a long time. Okay, so the articles, Andrew. You've got the list of what you thought we might want to look at it from this board. Excuse me? Oh, Derek. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do we need Derek, Mike, anymore?
If he wants to eavesdrop, that's totally.
I mean, it's up to you, Derek. Sorry, I wasn't even thinking about that.
I'll move on. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you very much for all your help with Mike. Thank you. Take care. Yep, bye.
Okay.
Right, so I go like this, right?
Before
Just
we,
like
Sure.
1970.
Unless it
just
makes a
lift
weird
up the
noise,
phone.
then you're gonna do something else.
when was the last time you used one of those? But before we leave this, you had in number 13, you talked about license plate readers. Do you have an update? Parking was one of your just.
I don't. Frankly, I think you would probably know more about that than I would. I haven't really been involved in the procurement of the license plate readers.
I'll ask.
All right.
I'm not here next meeting. I'll ask the meeting after. I'm asking you because
I try to keep up with it, and quite honestly, if you had information, I'd gladly hear it and keep up. But I'm not involved with that procurement effort.
Okay, so, annually, the planning commission discusses, articles that may be of planning concern. So, our discussion and our action on this is advisory, so we would make a recommendation to FinCom or not, or make a recommendation to the planning board or not, because those are the entities that actually provide the,
The motion.
the actual motion,
Yeah.
to town meeting. So on page 65, the staff went through and you see our opinions here. And it's stamped draft because it's not finalized until after we've had our discussions. So normally what we do is kind of go through them. There's no necessary rush to get anything completed per se tonight. The Finance Committee continues to review articles. We can update you on those about what we know. And again, you don't have to agree, you can agree with us completely, or you can, discuss any of these as we go along. We gave you, the warrant was just finalized, I think, as you know, last night. And we did give you an update with the actual numbers, the numbers, or the numbers that are, or the letters that are here are the citizen designated references.
So if our next meeting before the warrant goes to print,
So the final,
our next meeting here, I'm not talking about planning board.
yeah, it's in February, so it's before,
It is, okay.
right?
February
After things come to
February
I think you said it had to be submitted the 14th.
Our next meeting's February 20th.
Right, but didn't you say at the last meeting that everything had to be final for February 14th? Do I misremember that?
The planning board has a meeting on the 13th, so I have to finalize all of your motions the
okay.
next day.
So
I
if we
believe
want to
that-
tell them, the planning board, anything, we'd have to do it tonight.
If anyone's interested in the planning board articles.
Oh, okay.
I didn't bring the schedule with me, but I think the FinCom is discussing their final motions on the 18th. I can look that up.
All right, so what you're saying, Andrew, now I see what Judith is saying and what Leslie just said. So anything that's a FinCom motion, we don't have to make a decision tonight to get to, we can, or it doesn't matter. It will,
Right.
it's not gonna be, we're gonna have another meeting before their final acceptance
And ours are
motions.
advisory opinions only.
Yeah, I know. We've had like one on the warrant, I think. Something we had once.
Different, yeah. over the
Depend,
years,
some
but-
state
I
thing.
thought we had some last year.
Occasionally we get some kind of little
Well,
note.
And these are the citizen articles, these are not the articles sponsored by the select board or other.
So the select board ones are numbered and these are alphabet?
It's all been numbered now, but
Yeah.
again, at the time we prepared this packet, but we have a, we've cross-referenced.
And to go back to the timeline real quick, the planning board motions have to be drafted after your 13th meeting because they're due to be submitted to town administration and the FinCom early that next week. But the FinCom isn't adopting their motions until Tuesday, March 3rd. So that's after your next
Okay.
meeting.
Okay. All right, Andrew, so you want to start out with,
How about if I just
Jack's
go
one.
through the summary of the no action?
Oh, okay.
Articles that I think are not of planning concern, and therefore we don't need further discussion here. Is that okay?
yep, yep,
So the first is the sewer district map changes, and again, yeah, I don't see any of these that are of particular concern for planning purposes. They're reviewed by, the Board of Health, myself, and, GPW. They're mostly individual properties, and so I don't think those are,
And then the select board has to decide whether to support them or not,
that's right.
because it makes a 50% or a 66% threshold
Right.
to be added, so.
But I think there's enough eyes on this particular one that I don't think we need to weigh in on. Reestablishing Park and Rec Department, again, I don't think that's an administrative issue that I don't think the regional planning agency needs to be involved in that. Glyphosate prohibition, there was a similar article last year, we did not join in on that. Appropriation for Fairwinds, again, and I think the policy decision will be by others. Behavioral health transport. Wheelhouse CPC, again, we have representatives on that, it's already underway. down to the complaint committee, again, that's a similar article. We've not been involved in the past. Notice bylaw amendment. And hazardous waste, citizen requested is underfund a hazardous waste facility.
Oh, the building, that was, all right, that's it.
So those particular ones, if there's any people want to pull out or have a discussion, but maybe we could take a motion on those and put them aside.
The only one there I'd like to have sort of hear input is the Park and Rec article. How do people feel? I know there's some very strong feelings. I get a lot of people, and there's some very strong feelings that it's, you know, it's not getting the attention. Some of the various Park and Rec properties and are not getting the attention they had prior since the consolidation. So I just, you know, I think that's a NPDC, a quality of life and a, you know, sort of island life issue that may be worth getting people's opinions on.
Can I just ask Jack, who's on
Mr.
that
Chairman,
commission for
we're
years?
back meeting again. We've had 2 meetings now, last month or so.
All right.
And we're back to no regular meetings. But the only thing is, we have no money, we have no power,
Yeah.
we have nothing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Nope.
you know,
Andrew's got
everybody
something.
wants to know about getting the grass cut here, there, and everything. No, we have no control, that's all we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Andrew, go ahead, sorry.
Chairman, in order to manage this, so maybe that one, so that one we could pull out.
Okay.
And then vote on the balance of.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Andrew.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep, so I'll accept the motion from,
I'll make a motion to pull that one out and vote on the rest.
as written.
On the no action.
On the no
On the no
action.
On the
Yeah.
no actions, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so, Andrew, go ahead if you have a comment. I just,
No, so
Just-
so if you could continue your
Yeah.
discussion on.
yeah, so,
the park
so
and Rec.
Jack, and this is something, you know, I know it's near and dear to you, that's why I said that. So, okay, so I kinda like look at this now with a different lens than back in the day. I remember the green painted trucks and all that. The land bank has an unbelievable facility, maintenance, conservation foundation does it, I mean, they really have, it's like private, like they do it, you know? And also, a long time ago, I brought up something about coming up with the adopt a highway thing. Adopt a bike path, adopt an area for landscapers, the island, what do we have, like 300 landscapers in Nantucket? I mean, there's a lot of landscapers here. And today, fast forward now versus when it was Park and Rec, my mindset would be to look at new ways to get the work done, either by private sector or a combination of private sector and possibly reaching out to the land bank and entities that are doing this. I'm not saying the DPW shouldn't be doing anything, that's not what I mean. But you know what happens now when you bring up new stuff. We have to hiring, and it just turns into a budget item instead of a get it done item. That's what happens. So I think that there's a lot of resources here to do some of this stuff, knowing that they get advertising, they get some kind of recognition for what they've done. That's the route I think we need to take as a town to get back to the properties that are being brought up that are not getting taken care of.
When you had the first takeover of the Park and Rec, nothing got done for years. I mean, the ball fields were dead, everything.
Yeah.
Because we had staff, we maintained those fields
Yep.
every day.
And there was also
That's the
equipment out
difference
there,
now.
some
We
of
had
these
a lot
places.
of equipment, all our equipment
Yeah.
we gave to the DPW.
Yeah,
But, the main things is the ball fields to get them taken care of.
you're talking about Tom Nevers, aren't you?
Well, Tom,
Or
Nevis, no,
Delta.
I'm talking about the Delta
Delta.
fields, the Belvedere fields.
So who's mowing the Little League, Delta? Is it,
Little League takes care of their own.
they are, okay,
We had other fields out there as well.
Oh.
And
You
we
know-
have fields over at Nobodere.
yeah.
Nobodere fields. And those, the DPW's taking care of now, but for a while, we had trouble there with no water outside. You
Oh.
don't have to mow if you don't want it.
Yeah,
Don't get a lot of green grass either.
Well, that happened in the Park and Rec days, that we'd have to beat on the door and get them to turn it on.
Well, that's-
Sometimes too, but
What happened after DPW took it over?
yeah, and then it happened completely for a
Right.
couple of years. They didn't turn on at all.
They claimed the wells got hit by lightning.
I wonder if, establishing or reestablishing the Park and Rec from a organizational standpoint with, I like your idea, Nat, about private sector stepping up, but unless there's someone to organize it,
Yeah, I know.
they're not going to do it. Or, some.
I'm not saying, yeah.
No, not, but there might be some parcels, maybe somebody that has a direct interest in playing softball out at the Tom Nevers, that gets done. The Little League, when I was on that board many years ago, and I think they still do it, they take care of the Delta fields. It seems like it's a financial situation that we don't want to establish the Park and Rec because we're saving money on equipment, maintenance, salaries and things like that. But maybe by, we're putting that all on the DPW and expecting things to happen, but we don't know what the order is to happen. But I'm not saying like let's go full blown and reestablish and hire people and buy equipment, but just a stepping stone
A
of
new
just an
version.
organizational standpoint. Maybe if there was a director or somebody of Park and Rec where they can go out and organize, and they could, say there's a lot of private people that would do that, but okay, this day you're going to be doing the Delta Fields for this landscaping company, and maybe there's tax incentives or write-offs that they can do for doing all the work and getting a tax write-off for doing that, and at the same time helping the community. I don't know. I think. And it's just an idea. I'm not saying we can vote and do this,
Some of the
but
problems with it is that, the DPW can't seem to hire kids to cut grass. They don't get that many in the summertime that'll do it.
Yeah.
And not only that, they don't hire them until 18, I think it is.
Yeah.
Perfect ages, boy.
It is.
And they're having trouble keeping their staff.
See, the thing is, if they would take, now the DPW's got more administrators out there than.
Yeah, no, I know.
If they take one of those administrators, sign them to Park and Rec, so they can go.
Jack,
go-
you
go
sound.
once a month to a meeting.
Yeah,
I think it would help a lot.
yeah. I think that, Andrew, go ahead, you got something.
I just wanted you to, we're trying to put the article up, but John George.
Through you, Mr.
Yes, go ahead, David.
Why did we, and I don't remember that, but why did we dissolve Park and Rec to begin with? Was it
Save money.
Save money.
financing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was a
It was the
con,
last downturn.
and it was to,
The last downturn, there was a hiring freeze.
Yeah.
And we consolidated,
Yeah.
so.
but I don't think it was ever meant to be like nothing gets done now. It was
No,
more
of
of
course
like the
it wasn't.
DPW
Yeah.
sort of
No, no, no,
They
becomes,
were going to give it to different.
Yeah.
They tried it several different ways.
I think it could still work that way, but
It's getting better as each year goes on, it gets better.
it may work itself, but I always like this, the local landscape is here. I mean, it is unbelievable.
If you just offered them a plaque that says this park is maintained
Yeah,
by,
right.
I think that would be enough incentive.
it's great advertising.
Yeah, it's
That's
really-
where all the
I think
people
doing
that.
And there's
something-
pride also.
can't hire
If you're going to be
workers.
sponsoring that, you want to make sure that it's pristine. Your plaque's going to be there saying this is,
They'll be fighting over who gets the good parts.
Right,
They'll be
yeah.
doing.
Well,
Thing
we
is,
did,
with these ball fields, though, there's got to be somebody be there early the next morning after every game to pick up the trash. There's a lot of trash left on the fields. To try and get the teams to do it themselves, they don't do it.
Yeah.
oh,
we've been able to get
So-
landscapers to maintain around the outside of the VFW building and mow the grass out there in exchange for having the hall for different
Events.
parties and events
Yeah,
and whatnot. So, if the town could, they seem amiable into the barter system. So if the town could come up with something that they need in exchange for taking care of these fields.
Yeah, the problem with all those suggestions is who keeps track of it? You need an owner. Who owns, if you don't have an owner, if someone's not responsible, then nobody, if everyone's responsible, nobody's responsible. And so you need somebody who's this falls to, and I think
Yeah.
that's part of, what is missing is the DPW has other priorities, and it's just not the, so anyway, I mean, it's sort of.
and that's what I was, I know there's an expense attached to everything, but, without reinventing the wheel and going in full blown with this crazy budget where we're going to be spending millions, from an administration standpoint, you can go as far as hire a director, and that's your responsibility to organize all this free labor that we have. Tap into the community service with the high school kids that have to create so many hours. Reward people with sponsorships for plaques like we do the roads and highways. And maybe if there's a way to legally do that, to offer tax incentives for people to donate their time and maybe get a write-off or a deduction or something like that. But you need somebody to organize that. And it might be a pay position, but I don't know how, that's
like-
totally separate expense.
It's like the clean team stuff. I mean, it's fascinating how that works, and it's been working for years. But anyway, so go ahead, Judith.
I want to agree with what John and Matt said. I don't think it'll change unless there's somebody who's responsible.
Yeah.
And the only other solution
Yeah.
would seem to me to tell the DPW that they had to designate somebody at least a middle manager level to be responsible for
Actually, I was
this.
thinking the same thing.
Which
Right.
I don't, that sounds to me like an
No, you're
internal,
right, Judith. It's true.
kind of thing, but I frankly think it's kind of a wasting asset, that it's not responsible to not maintain what you have, to see the pictures of, and also I have to say liability, when you see pictures of rusted out equipment that kids could really get hurt on or something like that, that's just not good risk management. Not
Oh, you're
enough.
talking about the
Park.
That's because
Well,
they bought the wrong equipment.
Well,
Not Memphis. That was Arizona stuff. No salt air down there.
well, but somebody
Yeah.
needs to know that stuff. And the other thing is,
And remove it when it rusts.
Yeah.
Well,
the
galvanized.
sense in the public and in
Plastic galvanized.
prior town meetings of concern about some of the Tom Nevers improvements and things like that, it's like nobody's on top of this. And I think we have an obligation, government has an obligation, if the citizens really care about that. I know just my experience in North Carolina, small towns, the town I was on, like the equivalent select board, had maybe 9,000 in population. They had a full-blown rec department. They managed all sorts of programming, and for some of the maintenance, maybe there's ways to, I mean, for that matter, we combined volunteer firefighters doing some work on landscaping as a way to work out, and also doing firefighting. There are ways to have some synergy, but unless somebody's there to think about it and to make the rounds and to be aware of who the landscapers are. And I think that really undermines the credibility of town government and of town meeting if there's really an outcry like that. And I don't think it's a small one. I think it seems very well grounded, and we may have another recession coming up, but it may be more complicated because of all the other players doing what they're doing. The only other thing I can think of is if you contracted with Land Bank or somebody else to be the designated provider, then if you're contracting with them, they might be able to give you a reduced rate. You wouldn't have to pay overhead, or if it's a contract. We do a lot with contractors here, maybe more than we should, in my opinion, but I really think it shouldn't be ignored.
Yeah.
Where's the accountability anymore? I mean,
It's
if you're,
hard.
you know, space is limited, and we fought over a lot of space until the new soccer fields had gone in there, and there was always vying for how many games you can play and what time, and you had to be on and off. But there should be somebody from each board. Whether there's a soccer board, there's a Little League board, there's a lacrosse board. There should be a designated person from each board to make sure that if there's a scheduled game on a Saturday from 12 o'clock till 3 o'clock, you know, somebody on that board is dedicated, you know, should be accountable for making sure that it's cleaned up. Now, if they're going to sit out there and clean it up themselves, it's going to get old after a while. So they're going to just supervise and make sure that does everyone have the kids? Do you have all your equipment? Do you have all your trash? Do you have your sunflower seeds that you spit all over the ground? I mean, there's got to be some kind of accountability. If we're not asking them for accountability, then we're actually just letting them or saying it's okay to do this and leave trash on the field, because we'll come in and we'll pick it up. So,
And if I can just respond to that, I always think that youth sports is really where the training for grown-up civic behavior takes place, because the families, the kids, the teamwork and all the rest of that. So it's like we're losing a bet if we are doing what you say, to use that as a setting in which people can learn things they need to know, and that you can really build some connections.
yeah, and I'm not trying to complicate it and reinvent the wheel again, as I said, but if we're going to talk about reestablishing the park and rec, maybe you don't have to do it in such a way that you're going to break the bank and, you know, and get everyone scared to think that we're going to have a department of a director, an assistant director, and then a staff that are going to be maintenance, and then equipment, and then benefits, and, you know, it's overwhelming. Shoot it down right now, because we're not going to get the votes. But if we're looking at reestablishing in principle a park and rec where there's someone to take a position, whether it's a director, whether we advertise for it, whether we get funding for it, and then just having an organizational capacity to direct and then tap into this, all the free labor, the nonprofits, the community service, you know, I think there's a way to really get this done on the cheap,
Well, I think
but
the
with one
DPW
person.
would just take one of those new administrators out there and put them in charge of this. That way they could meet with us.
Because
No,
they're the
that's
ones
the
that
way.
have
We
to
used meet
maintain
with
all this.
Yeah.
We used to meet with all those teams. You know,
Andrew,
the Little League
I know.
people and soccer people, we used to meet with them every year, it's all
Sure.
that needs to be done.
Right.
But
We're not gonna solve
now
it.
the DPW does that.
Yeah, I mean, we can't solve it,
No.
but I appreciate the conversation. Andrew's gonna kill me. What do you got, Andrew?
I just want, I mean, I hear what you're all saying, but this article is to establish a department, okay?
Which isn't what,
And
yeah.
it's, with a separate department head appointed by the town manager, and also to, make an appropriation, so.
Which is like
it's expensive.
reestablishing the entire thing
I-
again.
I think
Yeah.
that, again, so if the board, if the commission wants to change this to it is a planning concern, I don't think that this article should necessarily be supported. I think that you've all talked about different.
No, everything we're saying is actually not what that article's saying.
Well, we've been talking.
Smaller
Yeah.
versions.
It can be done, but.
Without spending a lot of money,
Right.
Yeah, by thinking outside the box, not going back to the same
Right.
old deal.
Right.
Yeah,
Using the
100%.
resources.
Today's version.
I think, I don't think we have to just do the whole department, but I'm not sure, I'm one of those people that people think has lots of time and can do lots of stuff, and I do. But it's, the busy time for these guys, the busy time is when they make money, is when we need everything mowed the most. And we need everything cared for the most, and they don't have any staff, and their staff's quitting and everything else. If we're gonna do it, it has to be fit within, it's a town responsibility. The town should fit it within the budget somehow and within its staffing somehow. I think that can be done. If we wanted to make and I think if the Park and Rec Board is meeting more regularly now, and if we could, sort of work, if we want to make some sort of comment that said, we don't support the article, but we do support the concept of, re-energizing the Park and Rec Board and, and working with staff to have someone own this process, have someone within the existing structure.
I second that motion.
Yeah, own this process. That would be a good motion to make, I think, because then it shows that we're looking and realizing that, and I think, and I'm not critical of DPW, I think they've gotten a lot better over the last few years, but I think they're struggling. Just like some of the other departments, there's not enough people and they have trouble keeping them. So I think the same thing, I think, we recognize it's something and we hope to see it worked on.
So what was that? What
but
was
I
your
think,
suggestion?
I think Jack has the crux of a solution there, that
Well,
they take one of
yeah.
the administrators out at the DPW. The DPW has all the mowing equipment and all the people now, and they just have to get
Yeah.
that person coordinating with someone on Jack's Parks Committee, yeah.
Yeah, but we can't tell them what
Can't
to
tell
do.
them what to do, right?
Cause then they'll get their back.
I mean, I hate to say it.
Yeah.
I wish we could go back to those days where you just let your air out of your tires and drove on the beach, but that isn't gonna happen. So what do you got to say, Andrew? I'm
I have
sorry.
a question, and maybe this is for you, Matt, is during the budget discussions, has there been, I mean, in general, like, we have, as a department head, I have the authority to, move things around, recreate positions, shift resources around. Has this come up at your level at all yet?
No, and I think some of the things that haven't come up is because we've got 50-something citizens articles and a million things, and how do you get to the level of detail?
Yep.
Some of them we look at, like the sewer stuff, you've seen me, well, we'll get to that because we don't have to do that today,
Right.
So part of it, I think, is that too, so. And I brought it up tonight just to get a feeling for what the experience of, this is a cross-section of the island, what does this cross-section feel? Is this a valid concern or not? And should the select board make a comment, or should this board make a comment? We don't have to decide that tonight either, but.
So just to be clear, so without the article, the vote on the budget resources or whatever could be achieved to just, with instructions to the DPW to create.
I have no idea if that's possible, but that's what people are saying. I don't know if that's true. And everyone's saying that we'll get a lot of people to, volunteer and do all this wonderful work. I'm not so
Yeah.
sure that's true either.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just saying but again, there's been extensive restructuring in the DPW that I'm aware of. There's new positions that have been created.
Yeah.
And so with Jack's suggestion, I don't know why a position that focused solely on Park and Rec couldn't
Could
be
just
created.
add in instead of creating a new department.
Add it
That's
to
what
his
Andrew's saying.
job
Yeah.
description. I mean,
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
full-time job.
It could happen. It's just,
If it'd be, part of his job would be.
So what was your suggestion for a motion so we can go, you know,
We support it in principle, but not as written, maybe?
I don't know.
What I heard is like, find a way to restructure, you know, examine creating, you know, a position within the existing structure that focuses on this.
And through the DPW.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the right thing too. I mean, not that this is a suggestion, not, I mean, is there meetings talking about this? Is there people, you just said you had?
We
Yeah.
didn't have a meeting for a whole year.
Is Robert Neal involved at your meetings?
I'm finally going again.
Yeah, yeah.
So just for clarification, Andrew, we're making a motion to take no action, but with the comment? Okay.
That
Okay.
yes, so we're changing the no to yes. No action on this article, but as the regional planning agency, as Leslie mentioned, you know, you feel that the park and recreation, I guess, component is not adequately handled, needs to be improved, and it should
Right.
be.
As an, you could say something,
And
it's an
perhaps-
important aspect of, you know, of the resident island experience and
Yep.
needs to be improved. There you go.
When you simplify it, it's promoting outdoor healthy activity for all ages. Like, what's more important
Yeah.
for the island than that? I just don't want the perception to be that we're opposed, we're against it because of financial
It needs further
constriction
study.
or, yeah,
Further study,
right.
yeah.
So I think with that, if we can make that motion for the no action with the comments and the, you know, support for later, that would be the way to go.
Okay, so,
Perhaps it could be handled within the DPW.
Well, I don't know if we want to have a comment specifically before we think about putting in a motion anything about the DPW. I think we need to
Yeah.
talk to Rob and
Yeah.
his people,
Yeah.
you know, because
Yeah.
that's,
telling them what to do.
you know, I'm on the waste management work group, and, you know, like every department.
Yeah, yeah.
There's not enough people to do what there is now, and obviously the landfill is, you know, there's lots and lots of issues for everybody. So
Specifically
I don't think we
identified.
should assume that there's somebody at DPW who's got time hanging heavy on their hands.
Well, could we have Andrew or someone from his staff talk to Rob to see what he might suggest?
I don't think I don't think we need that to happen now. I think it's more a comment for the electorate. It's
I think
more
what
a
Matt,
comment-
I think what we're trying to say is we don't want it to die on the vine. We don't want to say no just because we don't agree with the article. We agree with the conceptual thought of it being reestablished in some smaller, simpler way with existing people. I think that's the answer, so I'm sorry. But
We're appointed, it's
Yes.
not appointed by the selectmen, we're appointed by Libby. So Libby is really in charge of this.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Prepare a draft comment for
Okay.
you to consider
All right.
for your next meeting.
Great.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
That makes us sound
Leslie,
more intelligent than we are.
Right.
Hopefully.
that was an I'm hungry, let's get
Leslie
going.
wants to get home
Okay, and
tonight.
I agree completely.
You're hungry again? Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna go to we're starting the highlighted, okay, so
So that motion was not seconded.
Second.
No,
I'm
you
sorry.
made the motion.
I'll second it then.
Okay, there you go.
all those in favor?
Motion again.
Motion is staff is gonna have something for us to look at next
Yes.
week,
And we're gonna change.
I mean, next month,
We're gonna change it to yes of planning concern.
yeah,
Okay, ready?
yes,
So again, back to page 65, so
yeah,
item G, which is Article 67, prohibiting roundabouts near school. We feel this is a planning concern. We are recommending opposition to this article. Town council pointed out the article is a non-binding directive. Town meeting does not have the authority to subject the traffic regulations to town meeting approval. Town meeting's authority is limited to appropriation of funds for the project. Mike met with the FinCom today, and I believe a
Motion not to adopt.
motion not to adopt.
so, all right. Does anyone have any comments before we move to the next one? If not, I'll go to the Washington Street parking lot. That is the valet article, correct, Andrew? Yeah.
Yes, that's,
Yeah.
You wanna do the support ones too?
I think he's doing them in order.
I guess we're doing the opposed.
I don't know. I didn't know we were supposed to do the ones that say support. I'm sorry. Okay.
So do we have to make a motion for each of these, or just blanket them?
I would suggest you do a motion as we go.
Okay, so I'll accept the motion to,
Not to.
not to adopt the roundabout article.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, Andrew.
Is that unanimous?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so the paper street yard sales, we have it as planning, yes, of planning.
We support it.
Concern and recommendation. Really, the support here is to support the FinCom's recommendation on this.
Right. Okay, I didn't know there was an article about, oh, this is just article, okay. So is there any discussion? If not, accept a motion to support.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
One abstention. I haven't looked at them all. I want to
Yeah.
look at it. I have to look at them closely,
Okay.
and I haven't.
Maureen, you okay?
Well, actually, I was thinking about doing the same thing too, as I have not reviewed this, so I would abstain as well.
Okay, so 2 abstains, Eleanor, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6. 6 positive.
Article M, which is the Washington Street parking lot.
Yeah.
This is Article 81 in the warrant. Town council's opinion is the article is legally defective. Town meeting does not have the authority to require that a parking regulation enacted by the select board under Mass General Law 40, Section 22 be approved by town meeting.
Okay, so
They're trying to do for the parking lot.
you just say,
This is
yeah,
no paid parking.
no,
valet
no,
parking.
valet. In that corner, Jack, the little corner there.
Are they trying to keep them out of there now?
This would prohibit, the idea was to prohibit them from using it,
Using that lot, so.
yeah. So,
Well, no, I think this was Bobby's. I think he
Yeah.
was talking no ballet, but I think he's also saying no paid parking. He wants that.
is that true?
Yeah, yeah.
There's a paid parking from Chris Bowen.
I
Well,
thought
Chris
it was,
Galacki's talking about downtown. I think Bobby's talking about the lot. If it's the one right behind us,
I can go back here.
yeah, he's upset. He doesn't want. He hasn't paid, and he doesn't think he should. The fishermen haven't ever had to pay, and he shouldn't pay because it's.
well,
yeah.
we should be letting people use it so they don't use the EMP lot on the weekend, but that's another odd comment, so forget it. But all this stuff is reactionary to something and
Yes.
needs further, talk about further study. I mean, it's
Yep.
it's just not appropriate, really. So does anyone else have anything on this, or I'll accept the motion to give it, a negative recommendation, whatever, what is the
Motion not to
recommendation?
adopt.
Not to adopt, there you go.
That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And before we go to these bicycle ones, Andrew, the 3, Matt, your point you made last night, you were at the meeting, Andrew, is that relevant to this? That was a very interesting, so one of them is not getting support and 2 are, is that
Yes.
correct?
That's at FinCom.
That's how I read it, listening to you last night.
And it's just the reporting one that's not getting, right?
114, so Article 114 in the warrant is the one not.
The database one, yeah.
Okay,
That's data collection.
Yeah.
okay.
And we move, and I moved that to the end so that we wouldn't start talking
Arguing
about that.
about it at the
Arguing
beginning of
about
the
that,
meeting.
and
Yeah,
then just
that
have
was good.
everything else die.
I saw that, that was
So-
good. Good.
So the other 2, we have a question mark here, I don't know. Mike, maybe, can you update us on this a little bit? So the first one, Article 75, is about bicycle right-of-way.
Yeah. Okay, so do you want to take which one was the one that was going to be the database, right?
Yeah, that was the middle article. That was 114.
Okay,
So that one we can, if you want to get rid of 114, we can just say, we agree with the we can say nothing, and the FinCom's gonna put a negative recommendation on it, and it's gonna go away, so.
Yep.
So we don't have to say anything, so that one's.
okay. So you want to make a,
Number 75 and what else?
75 and 76.
Okay.
so you want to make a positive on the two, Matt,
75
right?
and 76.
75 and 76,
Yes.
okay. Okay,
Motion to support?
on two, yes.
On 75 and 76.
So, if anyone has any questions, otherwise we'll accept the motion to give a positive on 75. Is that the right thing? Mike, oh, yeah, no, you're at all the meetings. I'm sorry, Mike, the BPAC.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I jumped ahead because I listened to the meeting last night. I understood what they were trying to say, so I didn't want to try to make it take longer.
Yeah, I missed your meeting last night. I apologize for this. I don't really know what was said, but Matt knows that the BPAC does support all three of these articles. I would just note that on 77, the right of way of bicyclists, that there is some unresolved issues that existed last year that really haven't been remedied at all. It would be helpful to get opinion on town council on this issue, because it does conflict with, police believe that, and I think that there's some merit to the argument that it does conflict with state law on right-of-way issues. There is the Registry of Motor Vehicles does provide a handbook for everybody. It does include language on how to best operate a bicycle, best practices and things like this, and this does conflict with that.
Are you talking the 3-foot one with article or
The right-of-way stop signs.
stop sign article?
So it's I understand the spirit of BPAC, and but that conflict with state law is something that needs to be clarified. So I don't know if there's an intent to get a legal opinion on this, but I would just tell you that there is some conflict with state law, and police absolutely believe there's conflict.
Hasn't town council weighed in by now on this?
He did, yeah.
They did
Must
last
have.
year, didn't they?
And Ian has counsel that's going to
Oh,
weigh in on some of this as well. So
so maybe we should continue this.
my take on it, regardless of how it falls, is it's you have to sort of change the, either if it's 100% illegal, which I don't think it is, but you have to change the sort of the perception and the culture. Right now, there's two bosses, both think that the other person's supposed to stop, so nobody stops. And so I think you have to clarify that the bike path is a travel way, and vehicles and bikes and everyone else crossing the travel way have to stop. And I think you should have some stop signs at the key intersections, and you should be ticketing bikes, Tom Nevers Road and, crossing Dionis, et cetera, and the bikes should get warned and then eventually ticketed. But they shouldn't have to stop 50 times on a bike ride, which is how it's, how it is, what is required now. If they stopped at every single stop sign, they'd stop 50 times on a ride. So, and some of those signs are legal, put up by the state and us. Some are illegal, put up by homeowners, so the renters and things don't have to, so that they put it on those small signs themselves. It's a whole hodgepodge. So and it's inconsistent based on when the bike path was built. The rules were different 20 years ago, and those are different signs than now, and so it's really dangerous. It's really unclear. And if we could have one set of rules like they do in other parts of the state or in Colorado and places where it's very clear who's supposed to stop, there aren't two sets of stop signs everywhere. I think if we could get to that, we would have a much safer environment for bicyclists. If we want to have alternative, transportation, then it needs to be safe. So, so anyway, I think it's important, in my opinion, I support it, and it's important regardless of what town council or anyone says. Sometimes you have to lead from the front. You have to say that this stuff's important, and then, the state will follow or people will figure it out. But
Mr. Chairman, I would just say that I agree with Matt 100% on Article 76 with the passing. There's to be approved state law that's going to change that addresses this. What Matt is saying is absolutely right. It's nice if local communities would actually approve this and demonstrate support for laws like that about the safe distance the vehicles need to keep away from bicyclists when passing them. There's nothing, we're kind of weak on that in the state for law, so it's great that we do something like that.
And
As
on
far
that one, that's what Nat talks about all the time about Washington Street.
yeah,
You're always talking about you'll be
You
behind
don't need
someone.
to pass every bike, only until after Marine Lumber.
Yeah, and so
It gets wider.
but the common sense is
East
lacking.
Creek Road.
Yeah. But with 75, I mean, I think what was discussed at BPAC, and again, there's no remedy. Ultimately, BPAC does support the article, and I think I get the spirit of it. There is an worst case scenario that has to be considered. The police they bring this up and why their argument has merit.
Yeah.
If someone's hit,
It's like the
you have to,
25 mile an
Mr.
hour.
Chairman, you have to assign liability if someone's hurt, and we have a law that conflicts with state law. There's a lot of fingers that are going to be pointed that this community is instructing bicyclists to act a certain way in conflict with state law. Somebody's been hurt as a result of it. Now we have to assign damages to somebody. And whose fault is it? And that's why it would be good to get legal opinion on this.
So you want to separate all this?
Well, what I've always been told by town council is that the municipality is shielded from these things, and that there's not, whether it's tripping downtown, getting hit on a bike path, we've had people, permanently brain damaged. We've had people killed on the bike paths riding their bikes, and some very serious injuries over the last couple of years, and none of them have sued us. So I think it's a little bit passive aggressive and a little bit, I think it's a little bit fear mongering to say that if we try to make bike paths safer, that we're going to get sued and we shouldn't do it. I don't believe that for 1 second. So. No, and I'm not directing that at you, Mike.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's contentious. I think the commission should know there's very contentious at state level. There's Walk Boston that supports the concept, but again, recognize there's a conflict. Other colleagues won't touch this issue on giving a recommendation because they get the spirit, but there is statutory that you have to abide. So it's an odd predicament.
Okay, Judith.
Two
real
quick points.
Yeah.
One is it couldn't go into effect until the AG approved it, right?
Right.
So
Oh.
if there's a debate on it, it seems to me it's legitimate for people to discuss whether they want it, and then it's going to be reviewed.
Sitting
And
up there.
instead of having local council, I think that's where it belongs, and that'll probably help in terms of the state interpretation generally. The other thing is, I just would push back a little on kind of the broad strokes of what you said, Matt, without getting into too much legalese. There's different kinds of risks depending on if you're making a planning decision, if you're making what are you doing at this one locale, and different states treat liability differently for those kinds of things. So I take your point, Mike, about it would be something the police aren't sure about and don't want to be in the middle of. But on the other hand, I'd go back to the first idea that if the state AG is going to have to review it ultimately before it would go into effect, I don't see the harm in letting it proceed up for that kind of review if the townspeople want it. It seems to me, I think I'd come out thinking that it may well conflict with state law. At least that's where I'd start without having researched it. But I don't know, given I think this is a much better draft than last year because it's really talking about major intersections and certain things like that. So I think it's really trying to bring more clarity on it. And that may well make a difference in how the AG would rule.
So, Matt, Mike, so what are you looking for between you and Andrew? We gotta do something because this is stacked. Do you want each article to get some kind of a motion, or do you want to continue to the next?
Well, I think it's clear that it is a planning concern.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. This is,
And if you're ready to vote, to support 75 and 76 are the ones that are moving forward.
Yeah.
That would be your motion.
I would move to support 75 and 76.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. I'm sorry for the, long conversation, but I think that was an important issue. You already said the CPC one before, Andrew, right?
No, we've got that. So the next one is Article S, which is Article 58 in the warrant. This is a CMI height restriction, and the planning board has already reviewed this and unanimously opposed this article. You could leave it in the other zoning related articles. that was recommending you just refer to the planning board, called this out specifically because, you know, it's directly in conflict with
No, the area plan.
what has
That's
already
right.
been accomplished.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about, as we talked about at the planning board, the HTC has full authority over the height of these buildings, no matter what the zoning says.
That is a really important point. I don't think 5 people know that. I mean, other than HTC people. Like, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Had no idea. Seriously, had no idea.
Yeah, they have a hard time
It's
upholding.
tough for them.
It's hard
Yeah.
for them to uphold it. There's a lot of pressure on them. Was there any discussion of going from 30 to 40 if a certain percent was affordable in some manner? And how would we do that if we did?
There was discussion about that, at least at the open space work group, but there's also other considerations that were thought about for that area, design considerations, such as when the planning board discussed with Stop and Shop, employee housing in that particular area. Or also uses that might, you know, be beneficial in that area, like a hotel or something like that. So there wasn't, at least at that time, the desire to restrict that to one use or another. And there are many design considerations that factor into this too.
Yeah.
The size of the lot, the massing of the building, that all.
Less ground cover, more height.
And I understand that, because the reason I'm asking if they talked about it is I've talked to John Giorgio. I may have an amendment at town meeting and it would be for affordable or workforce housing of some type, and saying some percentage, you know, if you do above 30, some percentage of the total building has to be for those uses. Because you know, I agree with you 100% that in that area, this is appropriate, that height is appropriate, and I am disappointed to think that, because downtown is this tall.
It's way tall.
Yeah, well, downtown's taller than this, and so.
And everything, and all the town-related stuff, and Mid-Island, there's gonna be one more school in 10 years. It's gonna be, actually, we talked about it today, it's campus committee. It's actually gonna be taller.
Yeah, so that's the right place to
what they
put the
need,
density.
you know?
That's the right place to, you
Could
know,
be taller,
that's
I
the right
shouldn't have
place
said
to
that.
do this. If we could find a way to, you know, get a little bit of workforce housing or something else there, that would be great too. And the people that say, geez, you know, the market will take care of it, those houses there, those rentals will never be $1 million. Some of those rentals might, you know, someone almost bought my family property and his goal was for $2.5 million homes or rentals.
Yeah, those
because
were high-end rentals.
Well, they were high end, but some of them, don't assume the rentals that are there now are not gonna be that eventually.
No,
A lot of
that's-
those have pretty good views, and when the demand is there, the way things are now doesn't mean they're always gonna be that way.
No, I
So if
agree
we
with
could
that.
permanently have a segment of this set aside, and I don't know how to write it, but.
I just would caution to try to salvage this particular article. We've talked about redoing the area plan. We've talked with the historical commission, for example, about helping with some visioning in that area. And I think rather than try to, I mean, there is no pending project or anything.
Yeah, there's nothing right now.
Yet that has
Yeah.
been approved close to this. We have the fall town meeting. I think that we really need to spend some time on that.
Yeah.
Because
And
there are
the reason I'm thinking about that, I'm worried that who knows how town meeting is gonna run. If it's, depending where this is placed in the warrant and what the first 5 votes before it went, this could easily be supported. I don't know.
No.
I just, haven't looked at that closely, but, I'd like to have something to amend it. If it seems like it will go down, I think that would be a mistake.
Well,
So,
couldn't we just give it a motion not to adopt? It's still a citizen work article that's still going to be up for discussion.
No, I think
And at
we
that
should.
point, then if you want to add an amendment,
Well, that's-
we could, but as a board to
no, I'm not
support
asking
this.
you to support mine.
Okay,
I'm just telling you I'm thinking about it.
okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not asking you to support it
Yeah.
either. I'm telling you, I'm thinking about it, and the reason I'm thinking about it, I'm being, 100% honest about
Sure.
it. That's what I'm thinking about.
And don't forget the special permit part. We can remove, like we did with Spouter voluntarily. We have a little bit of authority depending upon what the project is too. It's not all just HTC if it's an MCD. So
Why don't we just
anyway,
I
put
think
this
you-
article over to the next meeting with the other one we're gonna think about?
No.
I
think we can vote.
no, I think
Because it's.
if I may,
we've
I'd
already
like to make a
voted for
motion
it,
not to
planning.
adopt.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah.
Emotion. that
All
motion.
those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Those opposed?
Bert, you abstain?
I'm saying.
Okay, so, how many of us are there? 1, 2, 3, 4,
701.
701. Sorry, Eleanor, I forgot how many people were here. Okay.
Article T, which is 87 in the warrant. This is a sewer district map change, which is part of what Mr. Cassidy is doing. It's sponsored by the land bank. So I would recommend that the board support this.
Move to support.
Wait, did someone abstain? Did someone vote nay on the last thing?
No, just
No.
abstain from Bert.
Abstain, Bert.
Okay, so 701.
Correct.
Yeah. Judith made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Which one is this? I'm sorry.
The
This
Sewer
is the
district.
sewer map,
87.
land bank
Support.
one.
87
T.
Motion to support.
So that's, it's unanimous, Eleanor.
made the motion?
Judith made the motion and Maureen seconded.
To support.
Yep. Okay,
Zoning related articles, the other ones, we felt planning board could handle unless anybody
yeah.
pull any of those out.
And then, this is the Chris Kolacki article, correct?
113V.
So, Mr. Chair, before we move on, is that acceptable to refer those?
Do you want a motion to, move to refer those to the planning
I'll
board?
second that.
They're not under.
Oh, we're going back to that. I'm sorry.
IUXPP.
Sorry.
So you've made a motion to.
Yeah.
To refer to the planning board.
For the zoning article, sorry. And who's seconded?
I did.
Bert, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining again, I haven't.
7, 0, and 1, Eleanor. Matt abstained.
Article V is, paid parking,
It's not 113 though. I think 113
It's
is,
David Callahan's abutting road, one is 113.
Oh,
Yeah, 113 Morgan Square.
Yeah.
I gotta look at all that.
it's cross-referenced, there's an error in the master too.
That's 66.
But this
What
is
is it,
the
66?
Milwaukee one, isn't it?
66 is the correct reference for that.
For paid parking.
For the,
V.
Article V, submitted by Christopher Kowalski, is Article 66. Town council says the article is legally defective. Town meeting does not have the authority to require the parking regulation enacted by the select board under MGL Chapter 40, Section 23 to be approved by the town meeting.
move to oppose,
Is there a second?
Second.
Not to adopt.
not to.
Not to adopt, yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, David kinda did, and then Bert jumped in louder. So, you wanna give it to David this
I
time?
give it to David.
We give it to David
I
this
had the
time.
last one.
Just gonna have to get quicker, I guess.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous, Eleanor. You were against that, right?
W, short-term
Yeah.
rental.
Okay,
I have as a question mark, I don't know people's opinion on this particular article.
I think this is just too complicated and something that, you know,
You can see on the board behind you,
Yeah.
it would limit it to cap it at 10%. And town council wrote the article is legally defective.
I feel like we're meddling too much into Board of Selectmen, Select Board issues that with the state and everything that's happened, hasn't been a year yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean,
So not a planning concern?
I would say no. That's my opinion. I mean, I'm just one person. So
No,
anyone
you
else have
gotta
any
I
questions?
think it's a planning concern myself, but I
You
vote.
do?
because I think it affects what's going on with land use. But it's primarily financial, so I
But
can see the other side.
the catch is, and I agree with that, Judith, because of all the discussion about short-term, long-term, but the state put this in. Like, had this on the ballot, on the warrant for rental tax for years and never got support. And then all of a sudden, here we are, the Cape, the sewer thing, all this stuff's attached, and it's sort of, I don't know, it's morphed into something that we didn't really have control of, I don't think. I mean, that's my sort of thought. I'm not a legal expert with this by any means. I'm just saying, I don't think we've had time to even know what is happening with it, with the
Do we know
revenue and everything.
what FinCom will say? I just think one of the boards would do well to have an opinion.
So defer to FinCom?
Right,
Yeah.
in that case, well, it could be yes of planning concern, refer to FinCom.
Yeah, we're waiting for FinCom comments. Because we have another month.
Town council is, again, has a pretty strong.
Yeah. Legal opinion?
Perspective. Town meeting would have to amend its acceptance of Mass GL, the 64G, section 3A. Furthermore, the local option amount, the excise tax on short-term rentals cannot be different than the local excise tax payable by bed and breakfast establishments, hotels, motels, and lodging.
So what that means basically is you'd have to, and we haven't done the numbers to know whether we'd be losing money, because we were making X% from hotels and motels before, we're making X plus whatever, but if it's now going back down and they're both the same, have we made the same amount or less or more? Brian hasn't done that work yet. And I just, and so there's a couple other optional taxes that we haven't pursued. And if we had a choice in this, what I had hoped was gonna happen is I had hoped that we would put this in, tier this in over 3 to 5 years. We didn't have that option, which is what we did originally, when they put a tax in, for the hotels and things. They tiered it in over, I think, 3 years. And so, that's what I would rather have seen. We didn't really have that option, so we have what we have. And I think Nat's right that it's going to, the impacts are just being shaken out now. We don't really know what, and so I'm afraid of going.
I'm not
back.
saying it's not planning concern. It's just
Right.
It's like finance and state and it's like there's a lot of pieces here, and I don't even, that's all.
I think when Judith said it is a planning concern, but for the immediate issue, it's more financial. And I think what Matt was saying, the different things that have come up from taxes, where we are, what will pan out if we're going to pay money, get money. But it also ties in, I think, to a couple of selectmen meetings that we've had, or with the tax going into the water. Bill, the Cape in the water,
That's
and
what I
how
brought up
that
about
tax,
the sewer
and
thing, yeah.
you know what, so I think, from
Yeah.
Andrew's standpoint too, that this is really not a legally binding motion. For all those reasons, I say we're out.
So you would say it's a concern, but refer to FinCom.
Yeah.
That's what I would
I'll
say.
second
It's
that.
more
Yeah.
Or further, instead of FinCom, further information, because Brian is doing financial analysis of the WIF and the.
Is he now?
Yeah.
For this warrant?
Won't be for this
Okay,
warrant, probably.
okay.
But we could say, instead of dumping it just completely in the FinCom's lap, we could say further analysis necessary,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay, so Judith seconded John's motion, right?
with Matt's.
With
amendment.
Matt's amendment.
Yes.
Okay,
Second.
all those in,
Refer to FinCom for further analysis.
from finance director. Yep,
Name from everywhere.
yep. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you for that. Actually, very informational discussion. Okay, Andrew, where are we at here? I'm losing track.
Z,
Okay,
which is 62. This was a historic preservation paper article. It was submitted as a amendment to the general bylaws, not to the zoning bylaws, or as a home rule petition, which would change the HDC
Yikes.
review. The HDC, just so you're clear, the HDC under its authority has full decision-making power over the raising of the structure. It's specifically called out.
And when you say raising, R-A-Z,
R-A-Z.
not A-R-A-I, yeah.
Demolition.
If they find it's of historical significance.
Well, it's like,
If it has no historical significance, they don't have any jurisdiction over it, I found.
well, right, they could, well, they
Yeah.
could say this building is of historical significance, but we determine it can't be saved if it's deteriorated or something. In our zoning bylaw, one of the things that we put in years ago was a demolition delay bylaw. If a building clears the HDC review, but is found to have potential reuse for housing. So we already have in our bylaw a demolition delay bylaw for, again, it's not geared towards historic preservation because that has already been covered by the HDC. It would be, and again, remember the HDC has to issue a certificate of appropriateness in order for a building to be demolished. So the next review, next level review, is to see if the particular building has reuse potential for housing.
Yep.
And we've done a number of those with the housing authority where the HDC has said that building isn't historically significant. It could be moved or it could be demolished where we're able to move them around.
And
You
that's
mean
a-
housing Nantucket?
That's a pretty good delay there, right? You have to
Yeah, that's
advertise
what you
it,
meant.
and so that's a few months at least.
It's at
Oh,
least 30 days
At
and then
least.
another 30 days on top of that.
Okay, so there's already something in place.
Yes, there's plenty of safeguards for
So
this.
the problem with this bylaw is, again, it being in the general bylaw, it's, in order for the building commissioner to enforce this, it has to be part of zoning, it has to be part of something that has authority for him to act upon, like the HDC, or the Conservation Commission, or other things covered in state law. Not a general bylaw. I mean, there's a case from Hyannis, we've talked about it before, called the Spenlin-Howard decision, which again, matters such as this that are already covered in the zoning bylaw shouldn't be added to a general bylaw, and ultimately they're not going to be enforceable. So the real intent, I mean, the HDC again has authority to review this. I don't know if this is because of if the applicant doesn't like something the HDC did, but the HDC has full control of this.
Okay, I'm sure that this,
I'll make a motion to oppose.
yeah,
Second.
Not to adopt.
not to
Not
adopt.
to adopt.
And, is it all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm opposed to that vote. I'm not in agreement with the rest of you guys. I think what is happening, I'm not sure that this is the way to get at it. If we're gonna oppose it, I think we should talk about what's really happening. The Brett Schneider home on the end of Center Street.
Yeah, I knew that.
Should not have been ripped down the way it was. That is a travesty. And I think this is coming from Mary Bergman. This is she's now running Preservation Trust. This is a reaction to what's happening, and it's happening more and more. People are taking homes that are perfectly good. They shouldn't buy them. They shouldn't be buying 200 and 300-year-old homes if they want to put them in the dump. There's plenty of other homes they can buy. There's plenty of other lots they can buy. I just think it's, I think if we aren't going to support it, we should at least make a comment that we need to find a way to tighten up our preservation because we are not preserving any longer.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And how did that happen? Like,
It was, the roof was open.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, the water came in the
So
building.
there was a little bit of water, but it wasn't.
Well, and they let it become a lot of water. I have the
They
pictures of it.
did it themselves so that they could tear it
Andrew
down.
can fill you in.
Yeah.
Mr. I mean, I don't disagree with what you said. but I do think there was
Legally.
a process which is called an appeal. The decision to, allow that to be deconstructed and reconstructed could have been appealed to the Board of Selectmen, and that would have at least elevated that to an additional review. So I
understand, but it's, when the building is gone, it's gone. The select board said, don't tear down, Main Street. No, don't tell Macaulay's Main Street, and the land bank went ahead and tore it down anyway, with an order not to tear it down. And so this is,
that wasn't approved by the HTC. That was approved by the building commissioner as an emergency at that time.
I understand. So people are finding ways around these rules that
about
we
that.
say are sufficient. 106, 107 Main, 108 Main.
Yeah, and no, you're right, I forgot about that.
And so people are finding ways around it, and I just think that we need to find a way. Maybe our comment should be that we have to tighten up the rules so we don't have this kind of, travesty.
But I think that gets back to Andrew's general bylaw versus the HDC sort of legislation. Like that's a very,
Right, it has to be an amendment to the HTC rules, to allow it to happen under their purview, or it has to be a zoning change, and it was submitted as a general bylaw change.
I understand that.
So it can't go forward, it could be rewritten and resubmitted as an amendment somehow to the demolition delay bylaw.
Well, we should, then if there's a better way to do it, then we should have a comment.
This can't happen here.
Okay, so then we should have a comment that says that we agree with the spirit of this, that we need to tighten up the HDC, we need to tighten up demolition, this needs to come back in these two areas. If that's the case, if there's a way to do this, that people can't do what they're doing, then I think we should be pursuing that. And so that's why I'm not gonna vote to just gloss over
Yeah.
and say it was written wrong. I don't think that's.
is this
I
a
can't do that.
finance committee motion? I mean, yeah, you know what I mean?
It is,
Review,
and I just, again, caution, the HTC, has their own separate authority here.
yeah, yeah. So okay, so are they attending the hearings on the article, Andrew? I'm assuming the Ray Poll and that, is there at these meetings, if somebody's there, right?
Could we defer action on this and ask that?
Well, we voted.
Yeah.
But
But could we put a
But yeah,
comment
well, I
in?
was saying, is it too late to add because Matt
Some
did
kind of
abstain
comment.
and he had a comment. So
think it's
we voted in principle for the procedural level
I voted
to.
against it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I voted against you guys, which
Okay.
is fine.
I thought
And
you
if
said
guys
at the
wanna
end, yeah.
comment- If we want to hear what HDC says
Yeah.
and what other things happen, and then you guys want to take it up again in a month, that's fine.
You
Or
you
can we
make
just
good
put a
points.
comment
Nobody
in
is
that says-
I
arguing
understand.
that you
It
didn't.
says-
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, let's see what else shakes out.
Right.
And then you.
I
Yeah,
think the
we'll
general,
get
I think the
a
general
comment.
bylaw versus the HDC regulations is important to have some understanding of that
Yeah,
in writing, because people don't know that.
and it's
Like
best
Tim was
addressed through
saying.
the HDC bylaws or laws than it is through another bylaw.
Does that
Yeah,
make
I mean,
sense?
yeah, well, I think the fact, I mean, I was listening to what you were saying, Andrew, and I was going, oh, yeah, we can't make it all the more difficult.
Yeah.
But, I have to say that's kind of losing the forest for the trees. And I think, Matt, I think what you said, I mean, I would like to take back my vote
Can we-
approving this.
can
Can
we
we
vote
move
reconsider?
to reconsider this now? I mean, because I think,
The majority,
Someone
Make a
majority,
motion.
I move
Well,
that
I
we
made the
reconsider.
motion, can I withdraw it? after
No,
we
make a
vote?
No, we
motion.
voted.
I move to reconsider the
second.
vote. So, all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Yeah, sorry,
So how many of us said aye to reconsider?
I'll reconsider, sure, I mean, it's
One,
fine,
Two,
it's
three,
just,
4, 5, 6. Okay,
the
so.
problem is that the
Now we're
stuff gets so
gonna reconsider.
complicated, we get in the weeds ourselves.
Right, well, nobody's
By
saying.
knowing more,
Yeah.
I
you
would-
know?
I would propose that we continue this until the February meeting and ask HDC to have someone attend that meeting to talk with us about what.
You mean the
they're gonna say.
finance committee meeting?
No,
Oh,
Before we go to that point.
we can still take this up in February, right?
At our February
At our
meeting, that's what you're
February
talking
meeting,
about,
to ask
yeah.
okay.
A representative from,
Oh, I see what you're asking.
HDC
I thought you
to-
meant the finance committee review of the
No.
article.
to
Be
ask,
here for informational purposes.
yes, just so we can be clear on their views and craft an appropriate comment.
Okay,
We
That's
can also
fine.
ask Mary Berman, we can ask Mary Berman to
Okay.
show up.
Yeah,
mean-
I was gonna say, I mean,
And then
given,
we could get more information.
But-
Yes.
Is there a way to do it for the HCC? Is there a way to do it through regulation? What are the options?
I think either way, the year's gonna go by for this,
Yeah.
article as written.
Right.
We're just advisory. Sometimes we have a tendency to go a little beyond what we're doing, but I think it's important to make it clear that the HCC regulations would have to be some kind of altered, whatever that takes to do. But the spirit of this article is not a
Does she-
no, it's
Does
just
she
not.
understand the issue about the general bylaw?
She must know. How could she not?
Well, I don't know.
Unless she just did it without really talking to
Or
anybody.
maybe she got bad advice or something, but,
But no advice.
yeah, well, so, the
Leslie's got
motion
something
would be,
for us.
so, go,
I was just going to suggest that maybe we could draft a comment for you, like with articles.
Yeah.
yeah.
That,
But
is that okay, Judith?
Yes, and could we also though ask, or do you, I mean, I don't know if this is formally a hearing or a discussion, I guess it's not a
No,
hearing.
no.
But if we felt that we needed to have more information, couldn't we request HDC and her to be at the meeting? Because she might decide not to proceed with it and proceed in the fall if we had a discussion. I don't know who's,
Well,
you know,
oh,
do you see what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Uh,
She'd have to have an amendment or,
She might withdraw her
Something.
article. yeah.
you
Just
can't
help
withdraw it.
Guide her down a path for an amendment that works
Yeah,
for the,
yeah.
maybe if there's a special in the fall, she could get it in there, but
Well,
maybe
at
just
least
help
it
guide her down a
seems
path.
as though we probably have time, and that's a constructive
Yeah.
way to proceed, and I don't
Yeah.
know who else is in a better position to do it than we
I think
are.
staff could reach out. I mean, they're in touch with them
I
all the
would
time.
suggest that if you would let us talk
Yeah.
to the involved
February
parties,
18th.
and maybe there's not necessarily a role for you all
Okay.
anymore.
Yeah.
And we'll report back to you.
Because there might be something else going on, but we don't know about. So this is February 18th. We're continuing this, right? With the
Yes.
other one, Leslie, the other article? Okay.
February 20th.
Whatever the date is, I thought it was the
Motion on
18th.
that? Do we need a motion?
I don't think we need a motion to continue it. We're just not taking action now on it. So it comes back with the other article that we talked about. Merchandise and wares, we already gave that support. Unwanted
What
capital
did we do?
projects.
No, we didn't.
No, we
Oh, we
didn't.
didn't? Oh, okay.
Dave,
Just
it's
vote
yours, so
yes.
you
Oh.
can't sit here, you have to go.
Oh, that's your, oh, I'm sorry.
Dave's an
You have to
article.
recuse.
Good, because I need to use the facilities.
All right, so, anyone have any comments? Otherwise, I'll accept the motion to support.
So moved.
You all understand what.
Second.
No,
I actually
This
don't,
is
but,
about
giving out free samples?
the unfortunate practice of people distributing free samples and free spritzes on the sidewalk. And this would,
okay.
Free Red Bulls and that sort of thing?
No, it's the downtown corner right near Center and Main Street, and people have been feeling accosted and are like moving away and not going down that side of the street because the people working there are
Yeah.
and making it like a mall.
I've never
a
heard
mall
this
pop.
before.
Oh,
my
yeah.
kids
They
both
don't,
got-
they don't harass you or,
My kids
don't
got
know
like-
why.
I don't ever knew anything about, just like the thing about the rest, about Nautilus and the reservations, and everybody
But
sitting
Nat,
on the
Nat, they think your
sidewalk.
skin looks just fine, so, you
It
know.
is, I don't know.
Well, so.
But seriously, I mean,
I
I
had
totally
no
agree with
idea
this.
And I
about
think
this.
that,
No, I found them very annoying, and they used to be on
it's also just changing the.
On Straight Wharf.
Yeah, whenever you have that happening, people can fall and break a leg if the
Oh, yeah.
sidewalks are
crazy.
sufficiently bumpy
See,
and everything else
yeah,
like
I
that.
mean,
And
that's-
it's really, it's not,
It's public space.
Yeah,
You
it
know
is.
what, stay inside your door, except if it's like stroll or
well,
something
as
specific.
I've walked by there, I don't know, Maureen.
Yeah, there's
for
another,
you
there's
too,
other
but
stuff that
it's
goes on like
I
that.
see
but-
it and I don't want to be there because I don't want to have to force.
Oh,
my
yeah,
way
no, you
through.
want, yeah, or you have to, push by or what
And
have you.
if
Oh,
that-
yeah.
If that's that isn't, to my mind, what a normal store is.
Yeah.
Well, certainly not in
around
in
here.
downtown Nantucket, yeah.
Nantucket thinking.
And you don't know if it gets going once, what else?
This reminds me of the magazine thing on the fastball. Remember that with Grace? God. Okay. So, are we ready to take a vote?
To
Is this a
recommend.
recommend?
That's the
Okay.
proper term.
Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Unanimous, Eleanor.
Okay.
This one here, Andrew,
Article II is,
that's an odd.
80. Let's see where we are.
They didn't know that this hasn't happened till then here.
No.
unwanted capital projects. The town council has written, the article is not in proper legal form. It appears that the intent of the article is to propose a home rule petition, but the wording is incomplete. This may be corrected in the motion. The article would substantially increase the authority of town meeting by shifting the executive authority of the select board to town meeting beyond its traditional role of appropriating funds for capital projects.
That's crazy. I just gotta figure out what it really says. I think I read this once.
This article, I think it's Campbell's.
Calvin.
No,
And we recommend opposing.
Carol Butler, is that?
All right, so I know what this is
This is,
about.
this is, we
This is
go-
roundabout
This is
stuff,
roundabout
whatever.
stuff.
Yeah, whatever. Okay,
That's what this is.
got it.
Do you need a motion on this, or want to discuss this?
Carol Butler.
I
Now,
don't,
see, Campbell said
I
Michael
personally don't
signed
think
it
we should, but
further
that's
down,
okay.
that Carol happened to sign it at top.
Did you make a motion, Lou?
I'm waiting for the chairman to recognize.
I would, I mean, I don't wanna, if anyone has any comment, otherwise I'll accept
That's
the
what I was waiting
motion.
for. Anyways.
Sorry.
If
So,
no one has any comments, I'll make a motion not to adopt.
is there a second?
Second.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Unanimous, Eleanor. We're getting there.
What number is plastics?
That's just a resubmission because of the timing.
Oh,
Yep. So, see how I know some things? I can't even believe I know that. Legal opinion, beach access, Andrew.
What about plastic?
A plastic
Skip
ban.
over plastics with a question mark.
I thought, yeah, but that's going back to Boston. That's just isn't that just because of the timing of the effect of it is past April?
I was trying to
I'm
find
pretty sure
where it
that's
was
the reason that
deleted.
this is here, because it's already approved.
yeah, what would be the planning concern?
That's why that's a question.
Oh.
No, I mean, I can't think what the
I think
planning
it's the
concern
I
would
think it's the
be.
craziest thing I've ever seen,
I
but
think
it's already
about,
approved.
like, the landfill and what we do with plastic.
Wow.
There's, so
This-
Article JJ is Bruce Mandel's.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the same article.
And what number
Going
is
into
it?
effect June 1st.
That's 73 in the.
Seven-
These are the single use.
Yeah. Below a liter and all that,
Is this the town one?
Oh, right, here we are.
72 is the town's one, 73 is the citizen one, and I thought I heard that maybe the sponsor was happy with the towns, is that true?
I think so, and the town wants to sort of we haven't even started implementing the town's version that he put through last year. That's gonna be implemented this year, and so why add more stuff and make it even more confusing? So I think he's willing to step aside and sort of just implement what was started to begin with.
Yeah,
So so if we have to revote last year, if that's okay, I don't know, but.
And if you don't feel that this is a planning.
I think this one we need to leave on
yeah,
its own
I don't
path.
see this as a
No
planning
action?
concern.
Is that?
So it would be N, not a planning concern, and no action.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we need to have a vote for that?
So I move that this is not a planning concern and we take no action.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
KK is the incineration, appropriation incineration of solid waste,
Oh, God.
and that is Article 13.
Yeah, but that's not, oh, you got it tied in. I see what you did, Andrew. I'm sorry about that. You put it as, I got it. I was wondering
Oh,
what that
those are
meant.
pretty different. Yeah.
Never mind, got it.
Question for
Saving paper. All right.
Town council did approve this as to form Article 6 appropriation of fund. Any motion will have to identify a specific funding source and amount. Apply positive vote is only an authorization to spend, does not mandate that the select board actually expend the funds. Town meeting cannot require the town contract with a specific vendor.
I mean, we all know what, you know, that this is never gonna happen, but at the same time, there's discussion about gasification, et cetera. Where do you think the trash goes when it leaves here, going somewhere that does the same thing that we say we don't wanna do, or it buries it in the ground in Ohio? So I say that we take no action, because this is gonna get a negative recommendation from the finance committee, I'm assuming, Andrew, this article. I mean, I don't have a problem giving it negative. I just wanna, I don't know if it's really planning concern for us. I mean, it kinda is in some ways. It depends on how you look at it. The island, this is an island-wide, you know, situation, so I guess you could say that, but.
Well,
know.
speaking from being on
You're a
the
Nantucket
waste,
person.
well, no, the waste management working group.
Yeah.
I mean, we spend a great deal of time worrying about, you know, thinking about all the various ways to do things, and so to have
Yeah.
I personally, I don't think it makes sense to have a very specific article directed at
One,
something very
right.
specific,
When it's
which
a
isn't
big,
necessarily something.
broad design.
It's not something where this will be our way out of.
Yeah.
You know, having any issues. So, you know, and
Can I ask,
Yeah.
Maureen, is your group going to issue a recommendation or in the
yeah.
future?
Oh, yeah, no, we're working on looking at, you know, any number of things and trying to figure out what we can do, because we are running out of room. So what are we gonna do? And so that has to be decided, but it's you know, I mean, the things that, it's so incredibly complicated. I had
It
no idea,
Type it
no
into your
idea.
phone,
It's
your
it's
computer,
it's
read
horrible.
about this stuff. Unbelievable.
So I would make a motion to oppose the solid waste, because it does have planning implications to my mind. So I think it would make sense to oppose that.
Yes, a planning concern and a into opposed.
Right, that's why.
And before we, second for discussion, Judith, if you'd
It
like.
was just to
Yeah.
say, and could there be a comment that the solid waste group is exploring a range of options, so this is premature or something to that?
Yeah, I mean,
effect,
this
so
is being actively
Yeah.
considered by the DPW and the town established working group.
Don't we have, what's his name still on retainer for like the last 10 years? What's his name?
Oh, George,
George Aronson.
yeah, yeah.
He used to have his phone number.
If it's in order
Alright.
with
Yeah.
that, then I second just to.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think that's great. I accept that amendment.
And I think it's an important discussion.
It is.
At town meeting. I think people hear incineration and think you can't incinerate. He's talking about,
High.
yeah, he's talking about
Tax
4,000 degree. He's talking about different, you know, it breaks down the molecules. You don't have much coming out in the end, and we need X amount of garbage. We just about do that now when you look at everything. But what I think is really the most interesting part of it, in my mind, is we have a whole hill there with
Old stuff.
thousands, millions tons of feed for something that, you know, in this stuff, it can turn into, all different stuff, diesel or, you know, or hydrogen, or they make electricity out of it. There's all different technologies that we need to be looking at. And when you look at it, and I'm on the coastal resiliency, when you look at the storm pathways and some of the things that we're going to be facing in Nantucket, they're going to be going, the water could be going right through Long Pond, you know, with 2 or 3 feet of rise in a storm. We could be seeing, you know, what are we going to do, armor the dump? So I think, you know, an idea that would take if there is such a way to basically mine that hill and get rid of it, you know, and generate energy, that would be a great thing to be doing. So, and I think it's important that we talk about it.
Oh, absolutely.
And have a vision that's going 30 or 50 years out, so that, you know, when our kids are sitting there and saying, geez, why didn't they, you know, why'd they just leave this pile of dump, you know, at the dump? Why'd they leave a big landfill here to go into the ocean? I mean, we should be sort of trying to get ahead of that.
The other thing that people don't realize and I'm sure you do, Maureen, because you're on this group. I'm kind of like, been looking at this for years before we even had groups. We throw all that wood that we send away. The C&D is like wood. I mean, we burn wood in a fireplace like
That could
wood.
be our kindling.
There's a lot of wood on this island. It doesn't ever even get to the landfill. It goes in the trailers and leaves and all that. So there's a lot to this. I just think it's a good discussion. I'm glad that we can have it. Something's going to end up happening someday, but for deferring and giving it negative to, as Judith said, to with a comment or something towards the committee that Maureen's on, I think that's appropriate, personally. Matt, I agree with what you said.
Yeah, I think we should support the,
Well,
his
discussion.
his
The
initiative.
ongoing,
Yeah, we support the initiative. We support the
Yeah.
looking into this.
right.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what Maureen was saying when she
Exactly.
made a motion that, yes, it is a plan concern, just not to support this particular one, to oppose this
Yeah.
particular one,
Yes.
identifying one specific company with one, the general principle we want to talk
Yeah.
about, and we think
Yeah.
there's merit for that discussion. But just to comment on that one motion, I think we're
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
Thank you.
so,
yeah.
John,
makes
you're
sense.
good. Oh, Maureen already made the motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I think it was seconded as well.
Second
Yeah,
by
second,
Judith,
so-
sorry. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, unanimous, Eleanor. Okay, so,
Next one, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Article LL, which is Article 36, legal opinion for beach access, you can see this behind you.
yeah,
This, our suggestion is that it is a planning concern, that this particular article, there has already been legal opinions issued on this.
It's his opinion on it.
There's been
Title
two
file.
opinions written that there's, the issue is already settled law, that the, this other opinion is not correct.
so you're talking about the proprietors trumping the colonial law?
Yeah, and I guess I
Yeah.
don't understand why we have to have another warrant article when this could just be done.
This is, I think this is,
If there's another, theory beyond what has already been reviewed.
go ahead, Matt.
This is one, and we shouldn't spend a ton of time on this, but this is, I think what's happening, and I've seen some of the opinions. I'm not sure that they've researched Nantucket court cases in Nantucket,
New York.
Yeah, they haven't researched some of the Nantucket cases that exist. I don't think they've researched the rights and titles of the proprietors and how that was held and how that was accepted by the state when we came in from New York. I think they're, and so I think there's more work to be done. I'm not sure, we've made a vote at the select board level asking for it to be looked at the right way. Sort of instead of saying, is it legal? No, it isn't. See, we're done. We're saying, if you were doing a case for the town of Nantucket to continue to support the historical and customary rights that we've enjoyed, how would you write that case? We won on the state wanted to charge us with fishing licenses. We went to court, a couple different times, and we won the ditches and the ponds.
And the pond openings, too.
Based on some of the same things happening here. I don't
true.
think we've dug deep enough into it. I get worried that if you allow, sort of the policy to be dictated by the police because no one else is dealing with it, a homeowner's complaining and nobody else deals with it. So the police say, follow state law and put this stake into the ground, into the water. That's all we can do. And they police it and put people out there to shoo people away because no one else, we don't have a beach advisory committee anymore that was dealing with these issues, and which they did a good job. We're going to see more of this. If we, and I wrote this to Libby today, I said, if we are, as a town, are going to okay the policing beaches and people putting stakes into the water, which is what happened last summer, then we are going to have it all over the island. And it goes completely against what has happened since I was a kid. Bruce Watts used to go and take the fences down for safety reasons. He used to, he and Franzuto put stakes in with numbers to each of the accesses and said these accesses have to be open and we have to get around to them, you know, and so there is, I don't think it's as settled, you know, and we got a letter today from an anonymous person, you know, saying that this is settled and it's all set, and, you know, and we've got people in town, you know, Ken Bogran saying, oh, should we just, you know, put this in the paper and be done with this? No, we shouldn't be. So I just think that this is too important to our economy, to our culture, to not do whatever we have to do to try to figure it out. And I know it's difficult, and I know it's complicated, and, you know, but, and I'm not saying that I think this is, you know, again, this is one of those where, okay, we don't necessarily need to do this. It doesn't have money addressed or whatever, but we need, if yes, it has planning concern, and yes, we need to find a way to ensure that we have public access to our beaches, and that we are able to control what happens there, that we, you know, with ownership comes responsibility. You know, if the proprietors own them, which I firmly believe they do, then we have the responsibility to, you know, to police them better than we do. And we can't just wash our hands of it. So, anyway.
So would we be making a motion, yes, it is a planning concern, motion not to adopt with comment supporting the concept? Unless there's further discussion, I'd like to make that motion.
If there's no further discussion, I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous.
Motion not to adopt, but
It was a motion, yes, it is a planning concern, and motion not to adopt with a comment supporting the concept.
So put that on your comment list.
So these next three, Andrew, my brother, did you?
Well, wait a minute, we need to go to Article NNs, which is Article.
Where are we at now?
69, and this is.
Oh.
Complaint committee.
Oh, it's still there. I thought we were down further. Never mind.
Wishful thinking.
Oh, God, I'm trying to go, but we can't.
Now,
And this is why the select board hasn't done a really good review of it, because it takes this long.
Delivery deal?
It's,
Which
This is part of the process.
which article are we on?
This one's
Article
M.
69, open the board traffic rules regulations.
Okay, thank you.
Commercial vehicles in the core district.
oh, God. Oh, yeah, this is what we call it. Oh, never mind. This is gonna get amended and discussed, and, you know.
Are you sure we don't need two?
This is
days?
definitely a planning commission concern, I can tell you that. But I would say, it's definitely no action or oppose, but it's going to have the stuff coming out of this article is going to be just, I guess I would call it, more emphasis on the things we've been working on for 20 years.
And I think the FinCom's even kind of pushed this along, asking for, I'm not positive about a discussion with someone the other day, just asking them what's the financial impact as far as payroll
you
and
can't even.
everything else.
There isn't even a way to calculate it. It's just.
But it's off the charts.
Yeah, I had a talk with Julia today. I had a traffic safety meeting with some loading zone stuff, and he'll be voting on it at the select board. It's so hard to improve downtown delivering. Moving Sankaty Lighthouse is easier than some of this stuff. This is up there with the telephone poles. So when someone comes in new that thinks that we've been doing it wrong for years and we're going to fix it in an hour, is like anything else here, is not going to happen. However, the discussion about delivering is going to get more attention. That's how I'm
It's
seeing
already
it.
gotten more attention because it was brought up.
Yeah. So
Give me a comment. The interesting thing to me is some of what they're asking for isn't far off what was the policy when I was on the Restaurant Association 30 years ago.
yeah.
The large trucks had to be out of downtown by 11. They were all out by noon unless it was a bad day. Grace Grossman had priority on those trucks on the boat, so they got over early, you know, and and there was one big truck and there weren't a lot of others. There's Steve Bedian. To tell me if I'm wrong. And now
no.
there's about 6
No,
Steve Bedian trucks.
no, those. There's,
So
yeah, I mean,
and so there has.
I knew this was gonna
So we had it solved, and it slowly has deteriorated to a different situation. And it is. I agree with that. It's complicated.
Okay.
I blame the problem on our steamship rep.
No. If you only knew how much we've improved, you'd never notice it. It's like taking one snowflake out of the snowman. I mean, it's really difficult, you know. But I think I got a carrot today, so it's good. The good thing is, one of the points I talked to Jack. Jack was at the meeting today for the traffic safety. Jack has been doing this since the boat was in New Bedford, practically, and it's certainly since Dolly Freight. It's hard, and Jack probably can list improvements that have been made about loading zones before we ever really even talked about it. Some of the stuff is still the same. It's just just like talking about parking. It's just like talking about how come we can't
Restrict cars.
restrict cars. How come the airport's on Straight Wharf? We never planned it. I mean, it's just on and on and on. But making a really bad situation a tiny bit better is happening, and it's happened for 15 years or so, but it's so hard to track and so hard to see with more trucks coming, more food stuff. You have to remember, these food trucks are going to caterers, they're going to Bartlett's, they're going to places that didn't even exist. It's a massive business, way beyond what it ever was 20 years ago. So but what Matt's talking about 11 in the old days is really about the trash and the food and the trash and the gas and the oil trucks out of town early, so that the other trucks roll in.
Well, and the food
off the boat.
trucks, the large food trucks got out too. And I think what's
when there was 2 of them, you could.
Yeah, exactly.
Now there's
that's
too
my
many.
point.
You
Yeah,
can't
that's
do
my
it.
point is they can't. And I think even then it wasn't a law, but it was just kind of how we did things.
Yeah.
And it worked. And those trucks, and I'm not saying they don't have to go to the caterers.
Yeah.
They all used to go to the caterers after. They'd
No,
get
they
off the
do,
boat
yeah,
early,
I mean-
they'd get downtown and they'd empty it and
So
they go. Now you watch, now you watch, and there are some trucks that come in and they do downtown at 2 PM. And they pull up next to the hub.
So
because there is no space, and Nat's working on it. But just the understanding. I don't know the answer.
Imagine if you're a guy. Okay, so this is what happens too. There's a pallet in the front of a truck that got picked wrong in a place in Timbuktu. Kane's here, and the guy finds out that the order for Moore or wherever is in the wrong end of the truck, and the guy's out in Wall-Winnett. He's got a pallet that's got to go back to town. I mean, it happens, stuff like that. It's just, it's just like chasing fireflies.
They got the worst job in town.
They do, and they're all running out of hours.
Yep.
The boat is at 2:45 now that they get back on. We just changed the schedule a little bit to make the fast boat work better. It's just.
There is a I want to say an easier solution, but it's expensive, and that's what happened. Once we price ourselves out of the land, we take away a lot of options. I was in the trucking business. We have a few large food distributors here, and what they found out, instead of purchasing a piece of land that they can use for a satellite place, where they can get the big tractor trailers coming in, offloading, creating something like the commissary that once existed here, and have smaller trucks make the deliveries throughout the day. What they're doing is, instead of that large purchase of a warehouse, the purchase of the property, and they're just loading on a truck and making that delivery for the day. So they're not getting a brick and mortar. They're really just, saying it's more cost effective to hold up traffic and make that delivery. Because if you look on, when you go to Main Street and you see a large truck there, that truck isn't going into that store. A small portion of it is. So that could be offloaded onto a smaller van or pickup truck that wouldn't cause the same traffic.
I've argued with Michael Kopko about that for years. You're saying, okay, you know what's like the commissary now? Sales. Mm-hmm.
Cape Cod Express.
Yeah, but they don't do refrigerated. So you know what? I'm sorry, everyone. You could talk about this for a week.
Yeah.
It's like really, it's, there isn't an answer like the way, I don't know what to say.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
not
I don't
just-
want to be negative or positive or medium. I'm just telling you.
Just do it.
It's huge.
We're not gonna solve it tonight. I was just
This
bringing
is
up
so
a point.
crazy. This is like the pipeline off of South Shore a few years ago. I was like, whoa, what is this? And of course, I was right about that. But anyway, that was the wildest one. This is really hard to talk about. So,
Well, the other thing that you see too is more and more UPS and Federal Express trucks, because every store now has to reorder.
okay,
and
so
everything, nobody
if I
can
told you how much
inventory
air
anymore.
is on the boat now, I'd rather have an air agenda item. And I could have you guys stand on your head how much air is coming in Nantucket since the dump stuff that Maureen is talking about, and the Amazon has made an awful lot of air. Think about how many boxes. You think your bag of potato chips has air in it? There's a lot more in a box, and they are on that truck. There's about 2 semis a day of stuff goes to the vineyard for just that, what we shop now online. Here it's not quite that much, but it's a lot. So it's just,
Mr. Chairman, it sounds like everyone thinks, yes, this is a planning concern, but maybe there's more discussion needs to occur.
further study, whatever. I don't want to be like,
They're asking for.
worst
something
thing that ever
already.
happened. It's not going to happen, but it's definitely, a conversation, So
There's one trucker that comes in that parks right alongside of the hub,
I know.
and he's got about 4 or 5 kids with him.
Yeah.
And he sends those kids out with dollars.
That's good.
Downtown area.
The hub is the best spot that no one wants to have.
Unless you're trying to turn to go down that road.
Well, if he did it at 10 or 11 in the morning, it's great.
Well, but then all that.
So is there do
Okay.
we have a motion?
Yeah.
I'm.
So what do we do?
Do you have a suggestion for a motion,
Sorry.
Andrew?
I just don't want to sound
I
like.
just,
So they would
He's
try to
tired.
cut
This is
the
his
traffic.
meeting today.
So-
So what do we have here, Andrew? You suggest?
Yes, a planning concern continue to your next.
Okay.
good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Who seconded,
I second.
and Maureen made the motion?
Yes.
Oh, I guess so. I guess I
Yeah.
did, yeah.
You just said so
You did
moved
that.
after
Yeah, I
Andrew
did, I
said
did,
that.
I must have, right.
Okay.
Article SS, which is 78 in the bylaw, it's an outdoor lighting bylaw amendment. It is, town council has said it's too vague, the way it's been submitted, and not enforceable.
Yikes. What is this one? I don't remember this one either.
Authorize a special monthly inspection night shift. Someone's looking for a job.
Linda.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Oh, you got.
You're the light officer, Leslie, before we had night sky, dark skies and all that stuff. So what is this really about? Is this about working at night with those big spotlights when there's shingle in a house?
I haven't talked.
What is this about?
I haven't talked with the proponent about this article. And I'm currently not the.
I know.
Officer, but I have been off and on over the years. And right now it's Marcus Silverstein. I mean, typically for lighting enforcement, it's on a complaint.
Yeah, it's like a
basis.
zoning violation,
And
kind
I
of,
found
town by law.
When I was the lighting enforcement officer, most of the time it did not require going out at night. I mean, fixtures, there's certain types that are prohibited, they're supposed to be
Pushing
angled
down.
They're supposed to be shielded.
Yeah.
You can go out in the daytime and see what you need to see most of the time. And again, if we needed someone to go out at night, that's a managerial thing that we can make happen, so.
So definitely opposed
And I
then.
can tell you that the proponent of this article is a resident, not a listed one.
She lives right behind me. She's doing it.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Oh.
there were
Oh.
some issues with the school, there's some unresolved issues at the school and other things, whether or not that's being followed. I believe her intent was to take it to the bylaw.
Well, I can
This
tell
doesn't do
you,
that.
I can tell you now, my school meeting today, the new lights for school fields, you can't even see them anymore. They just aim to the ground, this LED stuff. It's unbelievable. No glow. They're gonna have videos of, and examples of this from other places. It's pretty wild. I was like, ooh, this is new. So there's positive stuff in technology with lighting, so I'll accept them. Anyone wants to make a
This is
motion?
matter of plain concern and that we oppose it with a comment that you can write for us for the next February meeting.
Okay, so all those in favor, is there a second? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, unanimous. I can tell when it's unanimous. Yeah, you're okay with that?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I will tell you if I'm not.
All right.
WW is Article 74,
This is the Burton Ball kind of thing.
obstructions, and
I mean, this is sort of, back to the,
Is this the Dr. White thing?
it's mixed with everything. Anything that hasn't happened yet.
Well, goes back to the guy
Yes,
who
we-
put it up in
Yeah,
Nantucket
it's Scott
last
White
summer.
or whatever the next, yeah.
Yeah.
so this would require a permit to place, I guess in that instance, road lines.
Guarantee that town council thinks that this is,
But do we have an opinion from town council?
And
Where-
the town council approved as to form the article proposed in the bylaw amendment that would prohibit individuals from erecting constructions below mean high water line that have the effect of prohibiting individuals from exercising their rights of fishing, fouling, and navigation under the colonial ordinance.
see, so that's where the catch comes in. So it's back to the original law. So they erect it, right?
Can I disagree?
Yeah.
I support this article because I think it's trying to have something on the books that's clear to
Yeah.
tell people that they can't without a permit. I think requiring a permit is giving you a checkpoint that if they think they want to do it, they have to come and ask about it, and that by saying rope lines, fencing, or other barriers. Otherwise, I think without something like this, to my mind, there's risk of altercations, and especially where there's dogs involved and
Listen,
other kinds of things.
I think it's great. Take it down, but I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's legal and we can approve this and
Well, I don't
it goes to
think
the next step
for-
of
for
whatever happens,
myself,
it's fine with me.
I
I
don't
just
see
figured it was-
anything illegal about it, so
Okay.
is there something that council said that I'm missing, or?
So he thinks this is okay to do.
It says it's on it.
Well,
It's back to the fish and fouling and navigation issue.
That's about the
Yeah.
noise ordinance.
I think that the issue will become that fishing, fouling, navigation is a clear set of rights. Just walking along the beach for recreation
Right.
is
They-
specifically
that's-
not included in that bundle of rights.
So we haven't
When you
really
walk on the
done,
beach and carry a
Yeah.
fishing pole on.
Compass,
we're back to the same
Compass, yeah.
discussion. So that's what I'm saying.
But Matt, in terms of one big beach, do you think this makes sense to do?
I'm not sure. I don't know who's issuing the permit, I mean, and so who's issuing the permit? When people were fouling, they clearly had dogs, but that was the problem last year. So this is, it's kind of, and in some ways, I don't think this goes far enough, because I think you should be able to walk the beach. That's what you should be able to walk the beach. You should be able to, lay in the intertidal zone on a lot of these beaches. But you have to treat, you have to treat the abutting neighbors and et cetera with respect.
Right.
The problem we found was when we had a beach advisory committee, we went from having unlimited driving everywhere to like really curtailing
Yeah.
it. And we had a committee that worked
Yeah.
with so many angry people, and they fielded all the complaints, and they put out maps that haven't been amended for like 12 years now. They put out these maps and they made it
Jamie
really
Rainey.
clear. Jamie Rainey did a great job.
Yeah.
And so that was the owner, that was the focal point for when that all happened. And that has sort of fallen, in my opinion, that's fallen away over the last
Well,
number of years. And now it's not what we have, there's no, this is just, it's not solved
But we
yet.
didn't have the police presence, the four-wheelers, the summer specials that are way out doing all this stuff at that time.
No, they have, but they added
Now
those.
they have.
No, but
No, no,
Jamie
no.
Randy, they started that. That
But
was,
what I mean is now it's sort of like working.
Yeah, well, what
Well, but-
this
but it
says,
isn't
what
working, though.
this
That's the
says
problem. That's
is you can't
Okay.
put up a fence. That's a limited intervention.
I have no
If-
problem with this.
Because we're saying,
endorsing
if
it.
anything, it sounds like, at least some of us are saying that we would support this
Yeah.
and more. I mean,
Right.
but
That's what I would
again,
say. I'm
there
not sure
needs,
it's
you know, this is, doesn't, maybe it doesn't go far enough, but that wouldn't make me want to be against it.
Right.
You know,
and,
I
and-
guess.
And again, it just brings back the legal stuff. It's sort of like a shot across the bow to what last summer, and maybe one more layer of confusion to make it harder to do somebody else. I kind of see it like that.
Well,
So-
it also gives people something concrete to say, and fences, there's a lot of law about fences. I mean, fences are intended to block people's access. If you've got a fence, it doesn't solve everything, but if you're trying to fish or something like that, at least you can't have a fence that impedes it. So I move that we find it a planning concern and we support it, or recommend it, or whatever.
So we're supporting it? Is that,
Recommending it.
recommending it?
That it's a planning concern, and we give it a positive.
We support.
That's my
Support.
motion.
I second, or no,
David,
Fritz seconds,
fine.
fine.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye, unanimous, Eleanor. So Andrew, these are my brothers. I mean, I know we talked about this like for the last 3 weeks. Hey, what's the deal?
Right, and
What should I say? It's,
well,
What number is this one?
I don't
This
think
isn't-
they're 62. 62 was the.
ZZ Andrew Lowell, 62.
he's all
37.
three
Okay,
of these.
I'm sorry,
All
which is the hazardous waste building? Which number?
Is 60, is 37.
37.
that one, yeah.
Did we do that?
No
Oh,
action.
we included that in the bundle.
Yeah, we did.
Okay,
that.
But
got it.
62.
Oh, okay, all
We haven't
right.
on 62, have we?
We haven't. discussed
62.
Yeah.
62, 63.
so ZZ, which is not 62, is that what you're?
Well, we had 62.
I'm totally confused.
Historic preservation, so I just don't remember that.
Okay.
Oh, Z versus
Yeah,
ZZ.
Z's was historic preservation was 62, so ZZ's.
Yes, it's not 62.
Take a look at that stuff.
So I'm sorry, just so I'm clear, so
It looks like.
so
it's-
your brother's proposal about building a hazardous waste building is, we already
We already
dealt with
bund-
that?
we already bundled
it
that.
with
No action.
With no
action,
action.
okay,
Yeah, yes, Maureen.
So this
All right.
is,
okay.
This says 37, no, this says 62.
There we go, 64.
It's the last one on
63.
this page. and then
But
the
that
last one on
isn't
the back
right.
page.
64 is ZZ.
Oh, okay.
Again, I'm sorry, I know we bundled it, but we've got it as not a planning concern.
Nat, you probably should not have voted on it then.
I
No,
know.
Let's take no action.
I'm sorry to keep, I didn't realize how big the bundle was, so. What should we do? Or do we don't need to do anything?
If you want to, is your proposal to reconsider that?
Well, no, because I'm not totally clear, because here it just says it's not a planning concern, and I would think it would be a planning concern. It's suggesting establishing a building.
Okay, so
Yeah, but planning commission concern is what we're talking about.
Oh, so not overall, okay, all right.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to understand.
So just in regards to Nav's situation, we did consult with town council. He's acknowledging publicly this is his brother, and as long as he has no personal interest in these articles, he can vote.
Financial interest, yeah.
Unless
Or
he
is
doesn't-
somehow
unless he
biased.
doesn't want to.
It might be safer
to
for him
preserve-
not.
He knows. We had a little chat today about a couple of
Family
other
meeting.
issues.
So the first one, public property damage, and
About lights at the neighbor's house.
this is mentioned here, is it would have impacts on our operation.
62.
We do think, public property damage, is not something we're encouraging, but this article is just, it's impractical in its, how it's proposed, and public streets and public ways are not overseen through the Plus Department or the Building Department. They're overseen by our DPW. It's their property to manage, and we talked about how in the world this 500 feet from any property, and there has to be photos of what. And the other thing is there's no direct connection. So a car runs off the road and damages something, unless you can specifically tie it out.
It doesn't sound like there's a public dimension. It sounds like it's private versus private.
Yeah.
Too right, isn't
So,
that?
so I'll give you an example of something, okay? You ever see an excavator go down a street? And when it's hot outside, and they pull that lever and stop one track, tears it up. So back in the day, we had this thing called a track and pad planning board. You heard that mentioned, I think, a couple meetings ago. That used to be said a lot, track and pad, so you know. So in a special permit, if you have a project, you can have conditions about making sure that you don't damage, whether it's a sidewalk, a curb cut, an existing, whatever you're doing. But in these, just just a house or a job that has nothing to do with planning board, or it's just a building permit, and then you have, whether it's coordinated review, whether it's DPW is, they have the sign off on the driveway cut. That stuff gets muddy. I think that's what Andrew's talking about. It's hard to pin down. There's places to complain, to say, hey, this guy did this, and you follow those, procedures if it's something like private property.
But if someone complains and everyone says, not our responsibility, it's theirs, and the next person says it's not ours, it's theirs, and nothing's done, I think, look, and the person, I don't know what your brother, what's gotten him to do it, but Art Gasparo came, I think last year around this time, and complained about the boulevard. The town spent millions of dollars and reseeded everything and made it beautiful, and the next three or four, the next
it wasn't rolled though.
Well, it wasn't rolled, but the next, and within a month or two, all the contractors, everything parked on it, rolled over it, and it was ruined.
You're actually right about that.
Oh, and so the spirit of this, the spirit, I think, is good. Like if that happens, and who would know it? If you're doing a final inspection on a house, and you don't have to see them drive on it to know. You walk by, you do inspections the whole time. You would see all the guys parked where they shouldn't be. You would see the mess that it's made. You'd see all the damage, and at some point you'd say this has to be corrected before you go. I mean, but I don't. That would be a common sense way to do it. But I don't know how to, how to install that into the system. This might not
It's
do it.
like the park and rec thing.
Exactly. This exactly might not do it, and it might be adding a layer. But how do you do it? Because what happens now? People complain, and and nobody's responsible sometimes.
Well, it's happened to a lot of places all over the island.
Oh.
Nantucket Road was a mess, the grass along there.
Yep.
And Cliff
Bartlett
Road,
Road,
same way,
too. Bartlett Road was a mess,
the contractors work, they got about 10, 12 cars there.
Well, I would
Go ahead.
suggest that when that's happening, the entity that
Plaintiff.
enforces what happens in public roads takes action and tells them, you damaged this, we're documenting what you've done, and now we're going to go after you. I mean,
But then who is that entity, Andrew? That's the problem.
It's the DPW. They oversee all public roads, which includes the shoulder.
And if they're illegally parked, then it becomes a police issue. They can issue
but
citations for that. And I know there was on the boulevard. I'll tell you, there were about, I want to say, at least a dozen vehicles parked across the street from me, and I wasn't under construction. And guilt by association, that must be that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wait a second, so at the time, I wish the police would have come. They're parking in bike paths, on top of bike paths, obstructing any kind of access. So that's an enforcement issue where police, all they had to do was come and issue everyone an orange ticket with a fine. and I guarantee they wouldn't be there the next day.
Well, in some cases they do, because they just charge that to the homeowner and they keep going.
Well, you get 10 vehicles and you $25 for an hour, and every hour you come back and give you another issued ticket.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the only way to really make someone accountable is, and I don't even want to say it because you're gonna look at me like I'm crazy, is have it tied to a building permit somehow, but that just turns into another nightmare to enforce and everything else.
Then the DPW will say you're in my territory. I mean, it depends on what the person would say. Like, let's say
Well,
you had.
no, I'm just saying, you
could.
get there for a final
But what-
inspection and it's
complicated.
tore up on the street, you just make a little note after the inspection, whoever did the inspection.
But the question is, what jurisdiction,
Okay, I just thought
can
of
the
something.
DPW, can they issue something to somebody? I don't think they can.
They
So-
can. They
yeah.
absolutely can.
So
think-
if someone ruins somewhere, they're allowed to charge them back, like,
You file a lawsuit against them, you've
Well, that's-
destroyed our,
no, but then you're talking about lawyers and
well, that's what
lawsuits.
we have to do to enforce.
No,
zoning.
so how would we set it up so we
Okay.
wouldn't have to do that?
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
Matt, I'm just gonna raise my hand for myself.
Okay.
I
I recognize you.
just thought of something so that we can all go faster, that I think you'll really like. Remember the article that the ordinance or whatever the selectmen put forward with the trenching across the road, making sure it was paved perfectly back, and they had a time limit, couldn't do it in the winter because we don't have that hot mix. Because people were putting cold patch in January, and other than an emergency with a sewer thing, Jack, you were going to the meetings then. This is a little while ago. This is when Alan was on the board. This is a long time ago, but it makes sense. You could further study this, whatever, but something along the lines of Andrew saying that was a town. You had to get a permit though to cut the street, so that had more.
Well, they still have that.
No, I know we do, but that's sort of answers the problem. That was a permit. You can't just cut a street open for fun, okay? But when you make a damage, it's not that easy to. It's not as simple as that. So I'm just saying that was something that the town did that, has worked, I think, pretty well. And everybody sort of understands if we do something, we have to fix
When
it.
they used to fill in trenches, we used to have guys stand there and watch them do it,
Yeah,
make sure that.
compacted. I know.
You only get the losses 10 inches at a time.
Yeah. So I think that we should refer this, in my own opinion, it has some merit, but there's no real way to get
Just
something legal.
if I could quickly, it seems to me that if you really want to fix for this, it should be posting a bond, or
Oh,
carry
building permit.
insurance or something like that with a right to enforce that, and I don't-
Contractor's license, everybody has it.
well, and that
Now.
information should be required to be publicly available or something like that, so that, or that there be some posting of the name of the contractor that's doing the work, so that a neighbor or the town could be aware of it, but that isn't what this says, and I think that would take study, and I think you're right, it should be DPW. I keep seeing situations where it's, police don't want to enforce this, so they want it to go
Can't even
somewhere
ticket
else, and
moped.
DPW doesn't want this, and they want it to go to Plus, and,
That's my point.
yeah.
And I just, sorry, Dave, but
No,
you cannot tie everything back to building codes.
There's a lot of stuff on there
The
now.
building commissioner can enforce the state building code and then our local zoning code only. Not everything can go back to a building permit,
Yeah.
especially if it's outside the boundaries of the
9 o'clock.
Okay, yeah, no,
Okay,
That's how
so
you
it's
know.
just, there's been a little bit of that fever
Can
in
you
so
turn the
many of
lights
these
on?
articles with everything.
It just happens, that's it.
And it's, some of it
it
just
doesn't work. Yeah, no, I get that.
And some of it is the pressure that people are feeling because of the 150 homes in a year or whatever the number's been.
Well, it's really, in the-
There's, and it's,
it's
so
in
you
the
say,
R1 stuff.
or you're gonna say that the DPW is gonna enforce it. How are they gonna get someone, out to each place in town?
They
How
can't
would you
even
guys
cut
get
the
someone?
lawns over at the
No, I
park
know,
and
so-
rec
but
places.
how would you guys? You couldn't. You
Yeah.
couldn't.
You'd have to
Smart
have
area.
somebody that's
I will tell you
mature
that we see things,
dealing
we
with that.
articles.
Yeah.
So,
knows what they're talking
and
about.
anybody that sees things, people seem to see all kinds of things going on.
Well,
They just,
Yeah.
alert.
I sent Matt something about an app that Helena Montana's using that is replacing the click and fix or whatever it
See,
was.
click, fix. We have for a little while.
That
Oh,
the Helena folks, DPW and police, they're happy to do it because they want to give better customer service, client, citizen service. And the tonality here is so very different from that. I don't know what we can do to, I don't doubt that they're overworked, but some of this stuff,
not
it
that. It's
erodes,
just new
public
thinking.
confidence that somebody's listening, and I think that affects turnout at town meeting, and it affects respect for government generally, and people's willingness to run for office, and a lot of
Yeah.
stuff, but.
I mean, I think a lot of it is opinion too, like someone's opinion of something that they shouldn't be doing. And I'm not talking about damage now. I'm talking about
Right, annoyance.
parking, too many vehicles. They shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. Like, people look at the stuff with the right-of-way issue and the encroachments now. That's another whole crazy conversation, but it's similar to this. So it's not easy here. Like I said today, it's not Arizona. Nantucket's not Arizona. It is very difficult. Different properties aren't really public. Road layouts,
So to open
you
a
know.
street, you used to have a bond. And then it gets
Makes a lot of
possibly
sense.
closed up.
Well, I think that everybody has insurance now. There isn't you have to have a contractor's license. You can't pull a
Well,
permit.
it depends on
It's
what's
different now.
covered. It may
Several years
depend on
ago
what's
when I was on
covered.
the board,
Every day.
we had somebody left the shoulder of the road and that's never seeded it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We tried to collect from the bond people. They said, we don't cover that.
I mean,
That's
it's
why
like
you gotta
that with
look
the
at that.
lawsuit
Yeah,
stuff.
it's gotta be a specific bond for that purpose.
So, Andrew, what would your suggestion be here, so we can?
Well,
I mean, I'm
think
just.
it is a common concern, but either it be referred for additional study, or the way it's structured is incorrect.
Okay.
So if you want to support, who would be
Concept.
in favor of damage to public property, I don't think anyone is, but it's just, it can't be handled through this article.
Support and spirit.
I like this further study. It is definitely an issue of something, but it's
I mean,
not
like along with
specific.
recommended that there needs to be, another sort of mechanism, but it needs to come.
Well, shouldn't it be DPW that
Yes,
does
it
the background work on it? After they get Parks and Rec set, they'll need something else to do.
Okay, so anyone want to make a motion to that effect?
I would move it's a matter of planning concern that we oppose it, but include a comment that we review next time, saying we think there's merit in exploring the options here in ways that would include other approaches, but not the one designated in the article.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous. I'm gonna take a quick break, but we can keep talking for the next one. I know what this one is. This is a little easier.
So Article 63 triple A under us is, I see what the motivation of this is. It's applying the state's 10%
Yeah.
formula,
Totally.
attempts to apply that to the issuance of county building permits, and it's somewhat of a rate of development type approach, but it is clearly illegal. It's for multiple projects. It can't be implemented in this way. If there were single type projects, for example, with Richmond, we have a formula on how they have to produce the units. They can't build all their market rate units before they build their affordable. But again, that's a single project. Here, this would, you can see what would happen here. 9 permits would be issued, and then everyone would be waiting for the next affordable, so the next time.
And it includes seasonal, whereas the 5 or 600 year round.
Correct. Yep. Doesn't define what affordable actually means, so it's got multiple problems. I would say yes, it's a planning concern, but you have to oppose this.
Yeah,
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Someone second it.
And what was town council basically said that?
What's
What
that?
was his comments on this? Yeah.
His initial comment
Oh, is this?
Illegal rate of
It's trying to,
was that although the word requires uses this article's non-binding directive to town administration to enact regulations, but I had a further conversation with him that
Yeah.
those regulations following this intent can't be enacted.
Right.
So, again, you can do a rate of development bylaw if it's attached to something time specific. So you could say a neighborhood that has a failing sewer line
We've had that
can only
conversation.
issue so many permits until that sewer line is corrected or something. But you can't have an open-ended bylaw that's restricting the flow of a building permit.
Yeah, I remember that rate of development conversation over the years. We've had that every so often. It pops up with something.
There's cases, right?
So that's a good conversation for you to have with individuals on that.
We have the motion.
We do? Okay.
Need a vote.
Is there a second? Who seconded? Artie? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Okay.
Thank you all.
I'm sorry, everyone. Leslie is
I
just
make a
murder
motion
me.
to adjourn. Nope.
No, we can't adjourn yet.
One more.
We're not ready.
Look at the
Oh, we still got.
We're close.
Well, Mr. Chairman, just on this next item,
Yeah.
you're
Yes,
not
sir.
doing my review tonight.
Right. This
This
is,
is a
yeah.
preview, that's
Yeah.
what it meant.
Yeah.
We're not plugging it in
Like,
with the
we
new
don't
system.
have a new school this year at town meeting. Somebody asked me that.
There is a
No.
new system which you have the instructions, hopefully they're crystal clear.
Wow,
Wow, is all I gotta
40
say.
pages,
Wow.
40 pages worth, yeah.
Yeah.
So at the next meeting, I will have prepared a response to the goals that were accomplished last year. I would ask any ideas for new goals. I'd like the commission members to submit them. You have that in mind. And then we'll be getting you the links to follow this new system. So I'm the first one.
And Amanda's gonna set us up individually, or is this gonna come through staff?
To set you up and
With a
hook you
link.
up with the access to this, so you can do it from your computer.
In our regular emails?
Yes.
We're gonna get in trouble? Okay, thank you.
And use your regular.
All right, thanks. Appreciate that.
Could I
Yes,
just,
Judith, go ahead.
2 observations. Thank you, and to everybody here for doing the planning ahead and big picture goals. I think that really was very helpful, and you're doing a review of those. What was that, November, December was also really helpful.
Right, we did an interview.
Yeah. What I wonder is, since I read what you sent, but I don't, my problems with the form last year were it just really didn't seem appropriate for the kind of relationship we have with you. Is your opinion that this is better than what we had before?
I think it's better. I think there's still maybe certain items that, again, people might say, I don't have, I'm not gonna fill that particular one out.
Like
which
not,
you have the option
not
to do.
applicable or something?
Well, you don't have the information. I do.
Yeah.
I've done that a couple times. I don't know.
Right.
I can't
Yeah.
comment. 'cause I'm
Sometimes
not
there's
there.
too much detail.
Well, there is. and
Yeah.
there's-
And that doesn't
We have
reflect
that with the
negatively
steamship
if
too.
we choose to
Stuff
do
I don't
that.
even know we're doing. Yeah.
And, there may be some of you, obviously, the chairmen that I'm working with the most have probably the most information, and the rest of you varying degrees, so it's not perfect, but
And do you do a self-evaluation?
I do.
That, good, because I feel much better that we're moving into a direction that seems suitable for the kind of role you play, the kind of role we play compared to what we had to do before, so.
Right. And the town manager will participate.
That was exactly what I was just about to say. That's new, Judith, and I think that
Yeah,
that's
last year
been
was the
helpful.
first time. Yep, I think so
And,
too.
I think our relationship, Judith, you and I with Andrew together now after, in the last year or so is helpful for some of the, I guess I would say, misunderstandings. We used to do voice, we did the paper one, we did aggregate, and if this is what the town's doing, is this what everybody's doing now? Pretty much?
All of the non-union employees are going to be following the system.
Yeah.
So, and again, I don't want a separate system from everyone.
You're right, and I think that that's important. if we're gonna nail something down that we can, and also that all of us can do, this isn't like wicked complicated, this is like, if I can do it, anybody can kind of thing, right?
That remains to be seen.
Some of this,
To be seen, you didn't look at it
some of this stuff is complicated.
At the 40 pages of it?
No, I didn't.
It's intuitive, don't worry about it, it'll be
All
fine.
right,
Now you
So-
gotta make a motion to approve.
You know,
are we
Mr.
good?
Mr. Chairman?
So you're happy? Yes.
I've been
You're
instructed, it may be appropriate now for me to make that motion.
You got your bike path moving forward, you're happy. We just,
Well, I'll only be happy when I see it before I die.
all right,
Motion
thank
to
you.
adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you for your patience.
You can eat now.